time.
Gets it across. Seth Jones walks in, scores. Seth Jones breaks the ice.
You got to win 4 of these things.
Well, it's Groundhog Day. Again.
10 hits in the game. Lindholm sends it in, and it's Pasternak scores. Series winner for David Pasternak.
Their consistent, overarching theme problem: goal scoring.
Do you ever have deja vu, Mrs. Lancaster?
I don't think so, but I could check with the kitchen.
Now Nick Paul picks it up. He'll wind his way in. Scores! Nick Paul's done it again.
Unbelievable to the eye.
Will you be checking out today, Mr. Connors?
Chance of departure today, 100%.
He's stuck
It's Groundhog Day!
in Groundhog Day.
I'm reliving the same day over and over.
Ekman Larson tried to keep it in. Marchand! Brad Marchand!
And at the end of all of it, we could hear Ned Brierson just really putting the exclamation point on everything. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Big Apple Hockey. We've got a ton of things to go over. The conference finals are starting tonight, as well as everything that happened this last weekend, and the Islanders GM search continues on. I, of course, everybody, am your host, Mark Williams. That this playoff series, this season just keeps giving and giving and giving. Joined by the host of the final buzzer, Mr. John Volkowski.
Alexa, play Some Heads Are Gonna Roll by Judas Priest.
Alexa, stop. Thank you, Phil. And joined by the man looking for the GM, Mr. Anthony LaRocco. Hold on one second. Alexa, stop. All right, there you go, Anthony.
Yeah, great intro for that Leafs for the Leafs there. I mean, it's tale as old as time, right? Leafs losing a game 7, and I'm looking outside. I don't see any white smoke billowing up from into the sky yet, Mark. So I think no general manager yet for the New York Islanders.
Well, I think they're going to need one soon because there's a lot of questions that they're left to be answered. And the last time they were in a situation like this, Anthony, if I'm correct, a little teaser for Bar Talk later, that Lou wasn't officially the GM until July 1st. And he came from the Toronto organization where he was still under contract, and they just simply let that expire. Because it sounds like that might be happening again, perhaps. Just a thought on that one. Well, let's go to the A block, guys, where we have a jam-packed A block. Before we get to the conference finals, first off, everybody, remember the A block is brought to you by SeatGeek. Use the promo code Big Apple Hockey for $20 off your first order. Big Apple Hockey hats and shirts are available. Click the link down below. But before we get to the conference finals, everybody, let's look at what happened this weekend. Mark Scheifele, an eventful weekend. He scores Saturday night after the passing of his father, but then he takes a penalty that ends up leading to the series clinching goal. Guys, Anthony, I've been in situations like this before last year specifically, but what are your thoughts on Mark Scheifele's Game 6 and the emotional roller coaster he went on?
I mean, it's a tough situation. You know, you just, for him, you lose your father, and you know you happen to be also playing a game where your season's on the line, and you know, I think in that situation, you know, he's lifted up by his teammates, and you know they wouldn't have faulted him one way or the other, whatever decision he made. But like he'd said, you know, his family said they wanted him to play. He said his dad would have wanted him to play. So I think for him, it was almost not an easy decision, but I think he was comforted with his teammates' support and the words from his family, and certainly playing with a heavy heart. I think it's great that he scored a goal. I think that was awesome to see. Unfortunate how it ended with, you know, him in the penalty box and they scored the game-winning goal, but that's hockey, and I just thought it was really nice to see in the handshake line, which normally is just a great moment in our game, but how a lot of the Stars players are really embracing him. Shows that the camaraderie in this sport, even if you're not on the same team as guys, they were still there to kind of support him and give him some love there at the end. So I think that what he did was awesome. It takes like I said, it takes a lot of heart to do what he did and put that aside and play in a game. But unfortunately for him, the way it ended wasn't really as he would have envisioned it. But kudos to him for getting through that. That must have been really tough, and all the condolences to him and his family. It's all three of us here have lost a parent, and I think we all know how gut wrenching and how difficult that is. So kudos to Scheifele for getting through that and being able to be there and play in that game.
Phil?
What could I possibly say that Anthony didn't say there? I mean, it's kind of hard for me to follow up that. To add to it, it'll actually be 22 years on Sunday for me with my mother. So, for me, my background with Marty, you guys, I still can never get over what you guys did for me that 1 year with Marty. It sucks. It sucks watching somebody go through that. It's a kick right in the balls. The thing that I thought was the coolest was, like Anthony said, just the handshake line ended up going from, just a normal great moment to a normal great moment to just an emotional moment there. And I guess the one thing I can add is, for all the stuff we've heard about the hockey community and all the stuff that's gone on behind the scenes over the last 5-6 years, whatever the case may be, with all the scandals, Jamie Benn and Mark Scheifele kicked him when he was down on the ice the other night. And Jamie Benn obviously responded with that punch. Mm-hmm. But, on that handshake line, you would have never known that actually happened the game before. You would have never known it. And so just the hockey community comes together when somebody goes through the loss. And then the fans raise over $30,000 for one of Scheifele's charity foundations. Don't tell me hockey fans aren't the best freaking fans in the world, because they absolutely are, hands down. This community is great despite all of its warts. And it was really, a feel-good feeling, especially with the doom and gloom that was going on with, the Panthers and Toronto series and the heads, that are going to be rolling in Toronto, but man, you come back and you score a goal like that, and, you fought, and I truly believe that Mark Scheifele's father would have wanted him to play. Mm. I think anyone would have wanted someone to go out there and do the one thing that I love, because I know, when my mother passed away, that was the big thing for me. It was hockey. Hockey kept me sane. It kept me active. It kept my mind off things. And I know that that's the one place I would want to be when something like that happens. So, I loved it. And, best of, I don't even know what to say, but prayers and condolences to, Mark Scheifele and his family. That's, no matter what age you are, it's never easy to go through something like this.
Yeah. And it's a great tribute to get that goal. And I posted it immediately, shades of Marty St. Louis on Mother's Day. And the community also, one thing they understand is, yes, this is a competition. Yes, we're all fighting for wins, but we're also all community. And especially everybody now. This is one of the better moments. It's a far cry from Milan Lucic shaking hands with Montreal Canadiens saying, I'm going to beat the snot out of you next year, or whatever else he says in some of those handshake lines. But and the ones I'm referring to is 2014, in case if anybody needs to go look it up. it's a roller coaster, and truth be told, once the handshake line started, everything else became secondary. And again, like you guys said, everybody took their moments to talk to Mark Scheifele, express their condolences. And there's also the moments like Scotty Arneal turning to Pete DeBoer and saying, go get your Stanley Cup, which we'll get more to that series coming on in a little bit. But the outpouring of support from the community, I could tell you as recently for me, because I lost my dad last year, but it was it's always a good thing for all of us to lift each other up in these big moments. And as I get a text from her right now, I can't ever say the gratitude for my wife being there, who dropped everything to make sure that she was there for me. Guys, let's go to what the lead-in was. Groundhog's Day was here again, as Sunday night, the Florida Panthers, they just stomped the Toronto Maple Leafs 6-1 in Game 7 of the second round. Granted, the first goal didn't score until like early in the second period, but Philk, I, and Dave were talking about this Sunday night. Just, you look at this. It's speaking about shades of a different series. This almost reminds you of 2015, where the Rangers got shut out 2-0 in Game 5. They go to Florida, or Tampa Bay in this case. They move it to Game 7. They're the ones that ended up blowing them out in Game 6. They come back, same thing happens all over again. This happens right here, where Toronto, 6-1 loss. They go to Florida. They extend the series, 6-1 loss. Philk, what is next for the Toronto Maple Leafs?
That's why I used the Judas Priest song reference before, because heads have got to roll. It's got to change. I was listening to or watching clip of Brian Hayes on TSN's Overdrive with Jeff O'Neill and whatnot. And he said 3 things had to happen. He said basically Shanahan had to go, which was the third point. And then, Marner had to go. And then he was talking about John Tavares having to go. And he brought up a great point. John Tavares looked kind of slow in that series. When Florida really started to pour things on, he kind of blended in with the exact words that he used. He blended in. And you can't have players that are blending in. Matthews and Marner blending in. Chris T, you're talking about in the chat about why isn't Marner getting heat. Marner blended in. That's what happens. The guys like him and Matthews, they just blend in, because when the game gets tough, the game gets tightly checked, they just don't have that next gear, that drive to step their games up. And William Nylander, all the credit in the world to him for trying. Like, you could see that he was the guy that was battling. They were playing him physically too, but he was battling through and he was still scoring. He was finding ways to get goals. And, fourth in goals, 5th in points, William Nylander. And right now, I mean, he's the one guy that I would give a free pass to, because despite, everyone around him not pulling their own weight, he was still performing very well. Yeah, maybe if Anthony Stolarz is in net, maybe this is a different series. But I wouldn't say Matthew Knies is their best player at all. Really wouldn't. He was good, but I wouldn't say he was their best player. Yeah, your depth has to come through, and Max Pacioretty's little backhand tip redirect in Game 6 was nice, but you're going to have to start getting other scoring from other players, and they didn't get enough. Max Domi, had a goal in Game 7 to make it a 3-1 game, and that was about as close as it was going to get. Austin Matthews' body language was atrocious. I personally just don't think they're ever going to win with Matthews unless he's not the guy there. Like, there may have to be someone else that might have to come in and just be the guy so that Matthews can take that back seat. But I'm kind of with Matt on this. I mean, I think Marner is just one of those guys that just doesn't have what it takes. I think it's him and Matthews are just that way, and I think you got to move on from these guys. I think you got to move on from Tavares as well. I think you have to get younger, faster, more physical. I know from what I'd gathered and from what everybody in the Toronto media is saying, I honestly think the Leafs are going to pull a Bobby Holik with Sam Bennett. And I mean a Rangers Bobby Holik. And I think that's the type of contract that Sam Bennett's going to get this offseason from Toronto, and I think he's going to take it. I do. I really do. If I'm the Rangers or the Oilers, I wouldn't want anything to do with Marner. I know that the numbers look great in the regular season. He's a good defensive winger, but come playoff time, you need guys that are going to step up and are going to show up and play and fight through those checks. When I see Aaron Ekblad knocking over Mitch Marner not doing a damn thing about it, I start to think that he just doesn't have the balls to get it done in the playoffs. So heads are going to roll in Toronto very, 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 very soon.
Anthony, so where do you think that the Leafs go from here?
Well, Mark, we've been beating this drum
a while
on this channel for a long time about changes needed, break up the core four. This is finally the year that it's happening, and that's because two of them, their contracts are expiring and they're becoming UFAs. Mitch Marner's gone. He's gone. 100%. Tavares wants to stay, but ultimately, again, how do you bring back? And I get he had a good year. He had 38 goals this year. But how do you bring back a guy who was part of the group that failed to get it done over and over again? I think Marner's gone because I think he wants to leave. I think he wants to get the hell out of the hotbed media up there in Toronto, live a quieter life. Tavares wants to stay, but I think they're going to let him go too. And I think Shanahan's also going to go. His contract expires June 30th. I think he's out. Ultimately what happened with this team, and we've talked about it ad nauseum, they had too many top guys getting paid too much money, taking up too much of the cap, and it hamstrung their ability to round out the rest of their team. You can't win with a pure skilled team. I mean, look at Florida. You have, Barkov's insanely skilled, but he's also one of the best defensive players in our era. Keith Tkachuk is skilled, but he's also a sandpaper guy too. Plays top team. Sam Bennett. What?
I said Matt, not Keith.
I said Keith Tkachuk?
Yeah.
Oh, my bad.
Oh, you know what, Anthony? I don't get to use this for anybody else, but there you go.
Sam Bennett, another guy. Sam Bennett can score, but he also plays a hard-nosed game. And that's why the Panthers win, because they have those type of players. The Leafs, I mean, they've tried to get there by adding, guys like over the years, like, a guy like Kelly Yarncroke, or, they bring in Scott Lawton. But overall, the makeup of their team is not a team that you win a cup with. And I think we all saw this over the years, but they failed to make any changes. Now they're forced to make changes with some of these contracts expiring. So, the question is, who do they fill these holes with? I think Phil's right. I think Sam Bennett is going to be a guy higher on their radar for sure. But I think Marner, Tavares, that whole era, it's finally done. Probably two years late for my liking, but I think you're finally going to see a new look Maple Leaf team. And as far as Shanahan goes, he'll get another position, whether it's on the island or somewhere else. I get the trepidation with him because he oversaw a team that couldn't get it done. On the flip side, though, he oversaw a team that he brought back to relevancy and made them one of the better teams in the regular season for over the last 8 years. So it's a double-edged sword there, but I think he'll land another job. But I would be highly surprised if Toronto renewed his contract after, once again, another Game 7 loss.
Yeah, where he'll be going, that's what we're going to be talking about in our Bar Talk segment in a little bit. But the thing is, the Leafs are a total head scratcher, and that's one of those things that we've talked about this. Hell, guys, we took 5 minutes, and we talked about it before we started streaming. But you get teams, you look at them and go, come on, they just need to do this. They're almost, Anthony, they're almost like bad gamblers in Vegas at the roulette wheel, just hoping that the number's going to come up. I mean, sure, they might want to sprinkle, and maybe it hits, but Anthony, it's just I look at the Leafs and I kept going, this move isn't going to work. This move isn't going to work, and it kept going on and on. Maybe it's just the collection of players. I've always used the example Solani and Korea, dynamic together. Their most successful time was 2003. Korea went with the Ducks to the Stanley Cup Finals, and 2007 Solani was with the Ducks and won a Stanley Cup. So you can have times where your guys really are great complements together, even in the playoffs, but they just can't get it done together. And that's where the Leafs are right now. Now, the first question about this sort of is, if the Mitch Marner contract wasn't coming up and he didn't have the full hammer, would they just re-up and do this all over again and try to be like, hey, maybe we could do this? I think Marner's gone. I don't think he'll want the pressure. It's tragic when that happens because he's a hometown boy out there in Toronto. But it's just like one of those things. What more can you do here? And in the case of Matthews, you're going to have to find a way to get that guy or get a player that complements his game and can bring out what he could do in the playoffs. Phil, I know we were talking about this ahead of time, that maybe not, and you said it just now, maybe Matthews isn't the type of playoff player, but I think if you find a guy, take for instance, one of our favorite guys, Jonathan Huberdeau, we talked about this. Another example that I keep going back to. They looked in the mirror, Florida, and said, we're dealing our greatest player that's ever played for our franchise, that they drafted, I mean, of course. And they moved on from him. You bring in Matt Tkachuk, and now Barkov is a completely different player. He's still a great defensive center, but now he's even better. And now the identity of the team is different. It's questions the Maple Leafs have failed to answer constantly. You've tried different coaches. You've tried different GMs. Now it's time to try the players. Yeah. And that's what they're going to have to do. Yeah. And it's a lesson that they should learn in Manhattan as well. But I'll wait till Q&A later to talk about that. Anthony, though, I have to go right back to you, and Philky can answer this one as well. Do you know what team won more playoff series in Toronto than the Toronto Maple Leafs? The New York Islanders.
The Islanders, and I knew you were going to bring this up because after the Leafs got bounced and Tavares' contract's officially expiring, you have all those memories being stirred up again, talking about what transpired since he left, and yes, the Islanders. 2 conference finals appearance since he left. The Maple Leafs 0. Playoff series wins, Islanders. But who had the last laugh? I mean, honestly, I think it worked. I think it worked for both teams, really. Tavares left. The Islanders rallied around being the underdog. They came together. They had a great coach. Everything fell in place at the right time. And the Leafs, they got a high-end player that was great for them in the regular season through all those years. They just didn't have the playoff success, and that's not necessarily Tavares' fault. But especially because one of those years, he's the one that scored the goal that brought him to the second round. So, it's in hindsight, you look back on it. Yeah, when Tavares first left the Islanders, the average person would have said, okay, well, the Leafs now they're stacked. They're going to probably win. Maybe they win multiple cups in his tenure there, and
the hockey news said start playing in the parade.
Yeah, I know. So it clearly didn't play out the way people thought it would, and I think that's also the beauty of our sport. I mean, you never know what's really going to happen, and so the answer to this, honestly, I say it. I think it worked out for both sides, really. I would have never said that at the time, but that's how it ended up playing out. And the only thing I'll say about Tavares now is like, where does he go from here? I know he wants to stay in Toronto, but if Toronto tells him no, well, where does he go? This is a guy that wanted to go home to Toronto. He's had kids there now. His family's entrenched there. So is he going to want to go play for the Avalanche somewhere far away? I would say no. So then the question comes up. Does he or does he go to the Rangers? Does he go to the Sabres? Does he? I mean, this would be absolutely crazy. Already people talking about it, but does he go back to the Islanders? I think if not Toronto, I think he's going to try to stay somewhere in the Northeast. I don't know what the market's going to be for him, but yes, yeah. I mean, yeah, that's possible. I just think overall, at the end of the day, I think really, it worked out for both sides. I know you probably wanted me to give a different answer with a little more sound bites there and go off, but honestly, like I said, it's been so long now that I may not be in the minority, but like Islander fans that still hate him. Like, I mean, yeah, I did at one point, very much so, but
well, we know
it is what it is.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Yeah, I think, and it just worked out for both sides. It just, it's just funny though how ultimately the Islanders had more playoff success.
It really is kind of funny. I want to get Phil's take on this before I just give a quick thought.
Yeah, I mean, it's up and down, really, when you think about it. The Islanders made 2 conference finals in back-to-back years, but they also missed the playoffs twice during that time. I mean, they missed the playoffs in 2022 and in 2025. I mean, Toronto went to the second round a couple of times. That was the Islanders' bugaboo for a while. Is they couldn't win a playoff series. They couldn't win it. And then, Tavares broke that drought in 2016. Took them 23 years to do it. I mean, honestly, I don't think any one team benefited more from this than the other. Because you can talk about, the Islanders went to the conference finals and, the Trotz regime came in. And then the Trotz regime fell apart really kind of after that whole conference final. I mean, that COVID year in 21-22, was really kind of like here's your window. Your window is now closing. And it closed pretty quickly. So, I mean, yes, they had a very short window that kind of appeared out of nowhere. Brock Nelson became a better player, during that time. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, both teams have to have come to the realization, if they're smart, they both need to rebuild. Their cores are not getting the job done. So, I mean, either way, it's kind of like 2 kids that are both, instigating each other, fighting with each other, and then trying to go tattle on one of another. So I think for me, it's, I don't know. They don't. No, he's not returning there. I think there's just too much bad blood towards the fans towards him, and I think that he just. I don't think he wants to go back there. I don't, and I don't think it's good for them. I don't. I think that would be terrible.
Well, numbers in the rafters anyway. By the way,
what?
The numbers in the rafters anyway.
Yeah, I mean Goring's already up there with it, so that's not that's not happening. But I mean, why would you want him back there at that point if you're the Islanders? Like that, to me, it doesn't even make sense. The timing is just totally off. He's 35 years old. And for me, especially after watching that series, that he's too slow. He's way too slow. You could have him go to a team that has a ton of speed, a ton of youth and physical play. Like Ottawa, I think he would fit perfectly in Ottawa. I think that's like literally the perfect fit for him. He stays in that area. He didn't. I mean, he played for the Oshawa Generals in junior.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it was. He didn't play for the 67s, but I mean, he won a bunch of World Junior titles there. Right in that backyard. So I mean, and just the build of the team and everything just fits in perfectly for me for Tavares. So no, I wouldn't want him there if I'm the Islanders. And also if I'm the Islanders, like you need to start getting younger. Just younger, faster, more physical, and John Tavares is not that.
Sorry about the distraction, Phil. I turned on the chat window. I just wanted to see how it works. This is something that's in beta right now.
I've heard that before. I'm like looking at it, like, what is this?
Yeah. Well, we got to do a chat window for you guys. So just right now, just keep it a little bit classy. We'll throw you in there. We're probably gonna do segments where we have all the comments that go on in there.
But what's the point?
We like to pull up the comments anyway.
What's the point of it though? Because you see the comments on the right hand side, and then you have
That's where I was just trying it out for a second, figuring we highlight the comments to begin with, guys. So, look, as far as Tavares goes, I still want Tavares to get his due with the Islanders. He's one of the greatest Islanders ever to lace him up, and unfortunately, the way he left and how it happened. I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up playing there like 1 year at some point. I mean, lots of people have gone back to the island. He talked about it originally when he left, that it was warm and fuzzy thing. Does he want to stay in Toronto? Of course, but he's going to play for nothing. That's another problem that's in there. I think the Islanders kind of in a way did have the last laugh because a lot of us just kind of thought they were just going to fall apart. And now look at it. They were definitely the more successful team in that time span. If you want to stay playoff wise, if you want to do regular season, sure, it was the Maple Leafs. But Tavares, we'll talk about him more in the Pick Ems segment. But, and I think if he did go back, let me just say it like this, there would be the mending of the fences if he went back, and he probably would wear 91, even though it's in the rafters, Anthony, because he is the last guy to have 91. He would get the permission probably from Goring to wear it. But it's something – it's something to keep an eye on what happens to Tavares, because I think you're right. I think he's not really a center anymore. I think he's a little bit slow, and you're going to have to figure out how much to pay him to move the wing because he's not as valuable. And we'll see what that situation is. I do find it funny that the first two playoff series that he won were both against Florida teams, and they were on wraparounds, even though obviously the Tampa one, it wasn't an actual wraparound. You guys know what I mean by that. Let's stay with the Islanders, and let's go right back to you, Anthony. The Islanders, again, second interviews to Marc Bergevin and Matthew Darche. Who do you think, as this is now a two-horse race, who do you think you would want if you were Ledecky and Malkin to hire as your new GM?
Don't forget John Collins, too. John Collins has been one of the guys that are spearheading this search. You have Matthew Darche, obviously, hasn't had the role of GM yet. He's a younger guy, assistant general manager with Tampa Bay. So certainly he's done some good things there, assisting in Tampa. And then Bergevin, you're the opposite. You have the veteran. It's been around for a long time. He's done some good in Montreal, like, Suzuki and drafting Caulfield, but then he's also done questionable things too. So, I don't know which direction it's going to go. Depends on how these guys interview, right? I mean, that's really what it all comes down to. Who the Isles brass feels like conveyed their vision the best. It's a sell job. That's what it is. You sell your plan, and you try to make them believe you're the more qualified individual. So, we'll see what happens. Arthur Staple alluded to it in his last update when he talked about them. He said, could it be possible that they both get hired, meaning, one in the president role and one in the general manager role. He indicated that that's not impossible too, which in that scenario, I think it's definitely Bergevin as president and Darsh as general manager, which, I can get on board with, because similar to how I told you guys I felt about Ken Holland, I wouldn't have minded Holland as the president, did not want him as GM. Similar to Bergevin, I'm not totally opposed to Bergevin. I wouldn't, like I said, I wouldn't, be all sorts of angry if he got hired as the general manager. But for me, I prefer Bergevin as the president. He has more experience. He's been around. He knows how to work different general managers. He knows how to play the game. And Darsh can use that experience, being able to lean on a guy like Bergevin, who he reports to. So I think that would be a good combo. I would imagine that they want to get a general manager in place by June 1st, I would say. I would think,
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
I would say that time too. Yeah.
Drafts in about 5 weeks roughly. So yeah, you're going to want to get someone in there soon. So unless there's another candidate that, has been in the mix here that the insiders have missed, I would say it's going to be a combination of one of these two guys. And yes, obviously there's the Shanahan that's looming, but I think that it's going to end up being where Bergevin is involved somehow, whether it's president or general manager. That's just my gut.
By the way, there would be a homecoming for him because he did play for the New York Islanders for a season.
Yep.
Yeah, Philk. Wow, why am I tongue tied in the last 2 minutes?
I have no clue.
I have no idea on that one either. Philk, out of those 2 candidates, which one would you want?
First, I'm going to pull a goodie and tell you to settle down. Yeah, or I could tell you to give your balls a tug. That could be another one.
Give your balls a tug.
Give your balls a tug. I want Darsh. I've said this many times before. I just said it in the chat. I want Darsh if I'm an Islander fan. I think I would be open to what Anthony said with having Bergevin come in and kind of be like the president of hockey operations and have Darsh under him. I do think that it kind of reminds me of the situation that happened in Montreal where, we all thought Jeff Gorton was going to go be the GM. He ends up going and becoming the president of hockey operations and hires Kent Hughes. Mm-hmm. Ken Hughes has actually done a pretty good job in Montreal. The only thing I will say with that is that, like his superior, he tends to build more skill-laden teams that lack that physical edge, which is what they've kind of done in Montreal there. So, but yeah, I will. I'm on board with Darsh. I really am. And whoever the president is, whether it's Shanahan, Bergevin, or you were talking about Collins before, I would want a guy that's been a part of a winning organization that understands drafting and developing as well as Matthew Darsh does there on the island. That's what I would want, and that's what they need more than anything. You need to have somebody that's going to come in and make sure that Danny Nelson and Cole Eiserman and Cal Ritchie are developed properly, the right way, and also with kid gloves, because these are supposed to be 3 of your core pieces. If these 3 pieces don't work out, that's going to be a major, major problem. And also, you're getting the first overall pick. I didn't even talk about that. You got the first overall pick. You got to make sure that that's handled with kid gloves, not handled the way that the Rangers handle Capo Caco. Or Alexei Lafreniere. You got to make sure that all of these things are done right. And if you're going to get back there, if you're going to get back to glory, you're going to win a Stanley Cup for the first time in 40-plus years, you got to make sure that you're doing things right from the grassroots, from the foundation up. And, with Matthew Darsh, I would have a lot more confidence in that, knowing that he's come from an organization that has been, synonymous with drafting and developing and winning over the last 7 or 8 years. Maybe you could even say 10, 12 years going back that far. You want to talk about how Yzerman came in and, he was running off the back of, what was it, Len Barry? Len Barry's work in Tampa was it was Brian Lawton, but it was Orrin Coles and Len Barry who owned it. So yeah, you could talk about that and how they brought in Stamkos and Hedman, and then Yzerman drafted Kucherov and Point and Cirelli and all those guys and brought those guys along. Drouin traded them for Sergachev. So yeah, I want the guy that's been in the winning organization. He's got a lot that you could pick his brain from and really, really learn from.
The other thing I think Darsh probably has the strategy of is what to do with draft picks. Tampa, under Yzerman, especially when they were building, they would trade down, collect more picks. Then you have more shots at prospects and players. And then guys work out. And then you're going, oh, all right, look at what this farm system we got going. I think that's what the Islanders should do with this number 1 overall pick. I think you should trade down. A guy like Matthew Darsh, I think, will probably do that. Either that or he's going to identify the guy and go, that's our guy. That's it. No questions asked. Not saying that Bergevin would. I've never been the biggest fan of Mark Bergevin, so I'll just leave it at that. We already talked about him last week on our Bar Talk, so go ahead and check that out, guys. But I just think Matthew Darsh, and especially when you're plucking a guy from that organization where drafting and development are number 1 and they're paramount, and then they find ways to keep the guys like. That core has been together for a long time, and we all thought that they were going to win the Eastern Conference, guys. Who says they're not going to be right back there next year? Because they ran into a wagon, a team we're going to talk about in about 2 minutes. But the Islanders certainly have their pick of quality GMs to do this, and I agree with you, Anthony. It's got to be before the calendar, I think, turns to June. Maybe June 1st at the latest. They got to name him soon enough. And
it's got to be before Giuseppe starts going off again.
And maybe, just maybe, you kind of have one of those soft tampering conversations with a potential president.
Trigger warning from Michael Andlauer. Trigger warning from Michael Andlauer.
All right, let's go to the conference finals that begin tonight. Carolina and the Florida Panthers. Talk about a quick turnaround that those two teams are going at it before Edmonton and Dallas, which starts tomorrow night. But let's start with the overview of this series, Mr. Filkowski.
So I look at this. Carolina has played two teams that I didn't think that really were going to pose much of a threat for them. Sorry, I have to sneeze.
Wow. Who'd have thought that one?
Yeah, no, sorry about that. But Carolina has played two teams that I didn't think were going to give them much of a fight. I didn't never liked Washington. I always mentioned the PDO stat with them and how Washington was the big time leader and you know all the shooting percentages that were completely unsustainable for them. It didn't work out, and it never does. You always get like the Rangers. They were in 2015-16. They were one of the highest teams in the league in PDO, and they ended up getting killed by the eventual Stanley Cup champions in the first round. They won one game in that playoff series. But I will say this. This is kind of it. They've had the easiest trip to the Eastern Conference Finals that I've seen in God knows how long. And now they're going to be playing a real tough team in Florida. And I think Florida's going to wipe the floor with them. I think the last time these two teams played, Carolina was a better team. Florida has won a championship since. And I think they're going to wipe the floor with them. I think this is Florida in 5. But yeah, I don't see Carolina having the center depth to match up with Florida. I don't see them having the defensive depth. The one thing I will say is that Sergei Bobrovsky has been kind of up and down in the playoffs over the last few years. Like, there are times where he's been great, and there are times where he's been miserable. If Freddie Anderson keeps this up, which I don't think he will be able to, because I think they're going to face a team that's really going to push the issue. I think Anderson's kind of had an easier road in terms of workload. Yes, his numbers look great, but if you look at Carolina and what they given him, it hasn't been tough. I mean, he's made the saves when he's been called upon to make the saves, but I don't think he's been all that great. And I also don't see Carolina matching up with him physically. I don't. I think they're just going to play too big, too heavy, too fast of a game. I think they can take Carolina's game and shove it down Carolina's throat. And that's really the problem, is when you have to deal with somebody that can play your game and play it better than you. I think you're going to run into. I think you're going to meet your demise. And I think Barkov is going to overwhelm their centers. Lundell can shut down their centers too. Where is the scoring depth? I know Andrei Svechnikov has had a great run, but where is the scoring outside of him, Jarvis, and Aho? Where is their scoring coming from? Jack Roslovic. Everybody talked about, the Rangers shouldn't have let Jack Roslovic go. He's got 10 goals already in like the first 10, 15 games of the season, or 20 games, whatever it was.
Yeah, and then he reverted back.
And look at how much he cooled off. It's just not really the same system. They play the same type of hockey. The system's a little different. It's just that Florida has the ability to get in on the forecheck and win those 50-50 battles. I don't think Carolina's defense reminds me a little bit of the Rangers, where they might be a little too slow to keep up and win those 50-50 races. And that's why I think Florida is going to establish that forecheck on them. And Carolina's going to be stuck in their own zone. Like, usually they're the one that pushes the pace, and there's high shot volumes, and it comes from the point and everything like that. I think Florida's really going to wear their defense down. And when you have guys like Bennett and Verhaeghe and Barkov coming in and throwing those hits, they don't generate high enough. And another thing they did, and they did this against the Rangers last year, is they passed up a lot of high danger chances to go for point shots and try to generate screens. And I understand, goalies, when they're in a zone and they're on, it's going to take a screen to beat them, but you've got to get the shots through. And Carolina, against better teams, they're not good at that. So that's why I think they're going to have a lot of trouble with Florida. I'm going to give them a game, just because I think that.
Well, we'll get more into the detail on that in a minute.
I do think that Florida's going to. I don't see Carolina winning this series. I think Florida's going to make it a short series.
Well, exactly that. There are the X factors that are in the series. And Anthony, let's go to yours first, and then I'll give mine. What is your X factor when you look at this series? You could do both teams, by the way.
X factor. I'm going to say I know we talked about it in the prior series, but I think Freddie Anderson is the X factor for Carolina.
Mine too.
If the Hurricanes are going to upset the Panthers, I think Freddie Anderson has to be up to the task. If he plays the way he's been playing, then I think they have a shot, because he's actually been good. But the Panthers are a high octane team. As you saw, they hung 6 goals back to back against Toronto. Not back to back, games 5 and 7. So they could score. And if Anderson is shaky, I think this is going to be a quick series. But if Anderson can, play at a 920 save percentage in this series, I think the Hurricanes actually could be in decent shape, because, as you said, the Hurricanes, they're not fun to play against. And Mac Chuck said it the other day. He's like, I don't think anybody enjoys playing against the Hurricanes. They're an annoying team to play. They're in your face constantly. They don't let up on the back check. They swarm you. The way they they rim the puck around, go high to low, like they're a very good team. And if they're getting solid goaltending back there, then they have a shot. So I would say Freddie Anderson's my X factor for Carolina. For Florida, I mean, you can go a bunch of guys because they got so many. But I'm gonna go with a guy like Sam Bennett. You know, Sam Bennett is a pest. You know, he gets under your skin. He plays a hard-nosed game. And if he can get in Anderson's head and kind of be a little, you know, of a nuisance around the crease, and you know, be that guy that, you know, that doesn't pass it up to opportunity, hit the Hurricanes defenseman as they go back to collect the puck. You know, I think he's a guy that can send the Hurricanes off the rails pretty fast in this series. So those would be my two. And then also too, a bit. I mean, he's already going to get a big payday, but him coming up big in the conference final is just going to earn him $1 million or so more on his next deal.
Yeah, because you already hit the one X factor for Carolina. Freddie Anderson has to make all the saves. Goals are going to happen. Let's get this straight. Whenever somebody says, "Oh, they got to make all the saves," it's that shot that you look over and you go, "The goalie should have had that one." Phil and I, we were talking about this with Joseph Wall on Sunday night. There were a couple different times where we went, "He should have had that one," and that just breaks the back of your team, breaks the spirit, because now whatever work you put in, you got to work harder just to get it to happen. So let's start with that. The next one to mention, I'd go with Florida, and I would say it's that third line. That third line, Marchand, Lindell, Luostarinen. Marchand, 12 points. Lindell, 10 points. Luostarinen, 12 points. Those guys, they've been Anton Lindell has been one of my X factors, I think, for at least 3 of the series that I've done previews for. So I mean, this guy is he's done a great job, and now you got Brad Marchand playing with him, and he's leading Florida in scoring.
Him and Luostarinen have 12 points in 12 games.
Yeah, I mean, that's some of those things. You look it up and going, how is they're the ones that's going to be the complete nightmare for Carolina to try to match up against. I'll get to Carolina and the prediction later. Phil, what's your X factor when it comes to this series? Oh, they kind of outlined a lot of
sides. I'm just going to say depth. It's really comes down to scoring depth. Florida is a complete team. At one point, it was like their entire team had like 8 points or something like that, which was just stupid. It was like 8 or 9 players on their team had like 8 points. It's their depth. It's the depth on both sides. Honestly, I'm not going to say Anderson's going to be an X factor because I honestly I don't like Anderson's workload. I really don't. He's 9th in shot attempts against, and he was 8th in saves as of right now. And yes, he's leading in saves and goals against, but he's facing 21 shots per game exactly. That number is going to go up big time in this Florida series. He's going to face like an upwards of 30-plus shots a game, I think.
Yeah, and the quality of shots are going to go up too.
Quality shots are going to go up as well, like big time. So you can put Anderson there, but I just don't see Anderson being the difference maker once the workload increases. So for me, it's the depth, and Carolina's depth is going to have to come through big time, because I have a hard time seeing where Carolina gets the scoring production from. Aho and Jarvis, point per game. Svechnikov, 8 goals, one of the playoff leaders. Gossespier's got 7 points, and then it's like Taylor Hall, Jordan Martinook, Logan Stankoven. I've been high on Stankoven. I think he's going to be a very good player, but he's not there yet. Jackson Blake. I mean, Jordan Stahl's got 2 points. Kotkaniemi, 3 points, no goals. And for me, there's not enough depth in Carolina for them to win. You can't depend on 3 or 4 guys to carry your team through an Eastern Conference Finals series, and then the rest of the team just doesn't do enough. And again, I don't see Jordan Martinook going full John Druce like he did against the Devils. What was it, 2 years ago?
2 years ago, yeah.
Yeah, I don't see that happening. So for me, Carolina's depth is going to have to outperform Florida's depth, and I don't see that happening.
Well, speaking about that depth, Anthony, who are your under the radar guys to watch for?
I would say for Carolina, I'm gonna go with a guy like Jackson Blake, to be honest with you, because he's a guy that showed that I think he's going to be a pretty good player in this league. He had a good rookie year. He's fast like his dad. He's also small like his dad, but he could score goals. He's got a good shot. He finds that open space. And I think, you already saw it this year where he was a good secondary piece for Carolina. I think in another year or two, he could be one of their primary scorers. I think he's going to have a good career. And Phil talked about the Hurricanes' depth. I think for the Hurricanes to have a chance in this series, as aside from Anderson having to play well, as I said before, they're going to need a guy like Jackson Blake to have a good series to help out the guys like Sebastian Aho, Seth Jarvis, and Andrei Sechnikov. So if they can get production from their younger players like Stankoven and Blake, I think that will go a long way. For Florida, I mean, you used to be able to say a guy like Listerainen is an underrated player, but he's got 12 points in 12 games. And he's like a fantastic third line player. I wonder actually if they wanted to keep Sam Bennett, if he would become expendable, if they really wanted to keep him. And I think you'd have a lot of teams lining up for him. But I guess for Florida, I'm actually going to say, when we're talking about under the radar, he's their starting goaltender. So in your grand scheme of things, he's not under the radar. But I think Bobrovsky is going to play a role in this series because the Hurricanes, they're going to be throwing a lot of shots at the net. As we said, they go for quantity over quality. They get a lot of traffic in front. They just throw pucks from every direction. If Bobrovsky is a little shaky, that could give the Hurricanes some life in the series. Bob is a guy that can be up and down. We talked about it when they won the Cup. I mean, he almost lost the series for him, how he played there in the last couple of games. So, if Bobrovsky isn't on his game, that could open the door for the Hurricanes to make this a series, especially if Anderson outduels him on the other side of the ice. So, I think Bobrovsky, if everything goes right, the Panthers should win. But again, if he were to be a little shaky in goal, that could make it a scenario where the Hurricanes have a chance.
Phil, who do you got for your under the radar guys?
For Carolina, I got to go Taylor Hall. Taylor Hall needs to really have a series for them to have a chance. They need depth. They need additional scoring outside of their top 3 guys. Like Aho's a point per game, Jarvis is a point per game, Svechnikov is 9 and 10, and he has 8 goals in 10 games, which is phenomenal. But they need scoring otherwise. Gostisbehere, 7 points in 10 games for a defenseman is really good. But he's also a -5. And Gostisbehere's one bugaboo throughout his entire career has always been defense. He needs to be a hell of a lot better too. So you could probably put him as a number 2 behind Hall for me. But it's got to be Taylor Hall for Carolina. He has got to have himself a series and look more like the guy who won the MVP back in 2018. I'm not saying he's got to be that guy, but he's got to channel a little bit of that for them to have a chance against Florida. And then for Florida, I'm going to go a little off the board here. And I would have said Lusterinen too in years past. I can't use him right now with him having 12 points in 12 games. But I got to go Evan Rodriguez here. I think this is a series where a guy like Evan Rodriguez can really make a difference by just being a pest, getting under Carolina's skin, taking some of their guys off their game, and really kind of, just being an effective shit disturber, if you will. and he's been known to play that type of game. Yeah, you could talk about Nikishin, but I don't think they're going to ask a whole lot of him. Yeah, definitely just to be there and just be sound, but you're not going to ask a lot of Nikishin, so I don't want to put him in this conversation as of yet, because I really don't think his role is going to be a major role. But Evan Rodriguez, if he can come in and just piss everyone on that team off and give you a goal or two or a couple of points and just play sound defense and maybe, kill some penalties, then I think he's going to be a real effective player in this series for Florida.
I have a cheat on one of them. I'm going to go to that in a second. But first, I'll start with my under-the-radar guy for the Carolina Hurricanes is get ready, guys. So I've always had trouble with this one. Jesperi Kotkaniemi. Did I get it right?
Yes.
Okay. Wow. Nice. But, guys, he runs hot and cold in the playoffs. For Montreal, he had an 8-point playoff run. For Carolina, he had a 7-game playoff run. He's their fourth-line center. He could potentially be a difference. Trying to remember what year it was. I think it was like a couple years ago that he had like a bunch of game winners. Carolina. He had just one game winner for Carolina 2 years ago. But
I think that was against the Islanders.
Yeah. He's a guy that can change a lot of things if he gets the opportunities. But again, he's hot and cold. He's either doing something in the playoffs or doing absolutely nothing. He's going to have to step up. This other one kind of shocked me, and this is a little bit of the cheat. The Florida defensemen, all of them. That's under the radar, guys. Do you know who has the most points from defensemen in the playoffs? The Florida Panthers. They have 27, and that even goes over St. Louis, where they had Cam Fowler that had 10, Evan Bouchard, who has got 12, I think Thomas Harley's got 11. The Panthers, they got the most points among the remaining teams in the playoffs, and their defensemen really contributed in the Toronto series. You're getting points from your back end. This is going to be a real quick series. And a lot of us aren't even thinking about it because you look at Florida's forwards and going, damn, they're really good. But they're getting plenty of offensive contribution. So, Anthony, Phil already said this in the prediction. We're going to go back to him in a minute. But what is your prediction for this series?
I'm going to go Panthers in 6. I think, the Leafs won 3 games against the Panthers, and I think the Hurricanes are a much better team than the Leafs. So just in the style of play, they're more difficult to play against. So not as skilled, but I think that the makings are there for the Hurricanes to pick up a couple of wins here. Like I said, they're a very frustrating team to play against. If they play their game, they frustrate Florida enough, they're going to get their chances. And like I said, as long as Freddie Anderson is playing to a capable level back there, he'll give them a chance to win. So ultimately, Florida's going to win just because they're too talented of a team. They're the better team. But again, the Hurricanes aren't like a Cinderella team here that's just getting there on destiny. They're a very good team, and I think they have the pieces that if they play their game, they could squeak out some wins and make the series close. So still Florida for me. I'm not concerned about that, but I do think the Hurricanes are going to pick up 2 wins.
The biggest game for the Carolina Hurricanes is tonight. You have to erase that stat that I just put down there, that 12 straight conference finals losses. I got Florida in 5. I think they split maybe the first 2 games. Or you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if Florida won the first 2 and then Carolina took 1. But Florida's almost better on the road than they are at home, especially in these playoffs. So, I think it's gonna be Florida. Question is how fast the series is. I don't want to disrespect the Carolina Hurricanes and say Florida in 4, but the last time these 2 teams played, it went overtime, and a 1-goal game in Game 4 that literally Matt Tkachuk scored in the final 5 seconds. So I would bet it's going to be a tighter series than what a lot of people who are predicting Florida are thinking. Phil, you already said Florida in 5 in your series overview.
Yeah, I'm going to give Carolina a game just because I think that they'll find a way to rattle one off. I just think that with Anderson facing 21 shots a game and very light low workload and a lot of low danger chances against, not many high danger chances against, I think Florida is going to take them and really going to just kind of take them out to the woodshed. I think they're too big. I think they're too physical. I think they're too skilled. I think they play a perfect playoff game. And I don't think Carolina can do that. I think Brind'Amour not being able to make adjustments when teams can really kind of take his system and counter it is really going to hurt them. I think Maurice is a better coach than Brind'Amour. I think Bobrovsky is a better goaltender than Anderson, even with his inconsistencies. I think the other thing is that just Carolina's depth, they're going to be tested. I don't think they have enough depth to handle Florida. It just overall, Florida is just a much better team. And the other thing that I look at, and you brought up the stat about, the defense being so great for Florida and their corps leading, I think it's like 27 points. I think they have total with defensemen. Gustav Forsling only has 2 of those points. Like, what happens if he starts going offensively a little bit? Like, giving you more than 2 points in an entire postseason. Because he's bound to play a little better offensively, too. That's another thing. I don't think Florida outside of Slavin really has anyone that can log those heavy, tough minutes like Ekblad or Forsling does. For me, it's just they don't have enough. I think Brent Burns is nearing the end of his rope. I think he looks more like a shell of himself. Nikishin in for Chatfield. I know it's a depth position, but can Nikishin handle this? That's a question that needs to be answered. I don't think Carolina is as deep as they were the last time these two teams faced. And I think Florida, you could argue that they were better now than they were back then. So I also think that you don't want to go from 2 cakewalk series to the absolute gut wrencher. If Carolina can win this, they have a real good shot at winning the cup. But I just don't see it happening because you're going to go from putting the difficulty on very easy to very hard, and that's really what I think does that, man.
All right, because the other 2 teams that are in this playoff, the other playoff bracket, I should say, you got the Edmonton Oilers and the Dallas Stars, the Western Conference preview that the series begins. Slavin just stopped me from ordering guacamole. Oh, well, there you go. Anthony, you look at this series that's going to begin tomorrow night. You got this series that's beginning tomorrow night, Edmonton Oilers and the Dallas Stars. Anthony, go with your series overview.
I think this series is a series where Dallas has the much deeper offensive group. But the Oilers, you have 2 of the best players in the world. I think that you have a series now where the Oilers aren't facing, Darcy Kemper in goal or Aiden Hill. They're facing one of the better goaltenders in the league in Jake Ottinger. So I think when you take a step back and you look at this series, I like Dallas's goaltender better. I love their offensive, their forwards better. And I like their defense better. But because you have, again, Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl on the other side, they're that good that they could take over a series, just them 2. So all really Skinner has to do, who lost the job and then Pickard got hurt and he came back in and his last 2 games were shutouts. If he could at least provide formidable goaltending and those 2 guys can just do what they do, then the series could end up being pretty close. However, on the flip side, you have with Dallas, you have the leaders of their forward group and Jason Robertson, Wyatt Johnston, Jamie Benn, Tyler Seguin, Mason Marchment, Matthew Shane, Mikael Granlund, Evgeny Dodonov. Like they have a lot of forwards. I mean, I don't know what the number was, but they had at least 7 guys with 20 goals or more during the regular season, or something along the lines of that. They have a very deep group, and their defense, I mean, unquestionably, I think is better. I know Matthias Ekholm coming back will be big for the Oilers, but I mean, Heiskanen, Harley, Lindell, Bischel, they're a good group. So across the board, I like Dallas, but with McDavid and Draisaitl being able to really just flip a switch and just dominate, that could pose a problem for Dallas. So I think it's going to be a fast series. I think it's going to be entertaining. I think this is a situation where Dallas is going to really need to impose their will with their forward group over the Oilers defense. They have to play in the Oilers zone, make them defend, try to make Draisaitl and McDavid play in their own end for as long as they can, because I think the Stars' depth at forward just could take the series over if they play a lot of offense and keep the Oilers pinned in their zone. But I've discounted the Oilers a lot. I thought that they were going to end up losing to LA. I thought they were more going to get by Vegas, and they've proven me wrong both times. So I'm not going to count them out. But when I look at this series overall, I like Dallas better in every aspect. It's just going to be a matter of, again, can McDavid and Draisaitl just will their team to the finals again for the second year in a row?
Yeah, and again, that's something. It looked like Dallas was going to do it last year. Then McDavid and Draisaitl, I almost called him McDraisaitl, did it. Phil, what are your X factors in this series?
Edmonton's depth. I mean, the one thing that I think I mentioned last week or the week before on the stream is that Edmonton's depth scoring has just been phenomenal for them. Just phenomenal. It's been them that has been coming through. It's been those guys that have really been doing things like Connor McDavid, 17 points in 11 games. Leon Draisaitl, 16 and 11. That's not what we're used to. We're used to them being Connor McDavid being over 2 points per game and Leon Draisaitl just knocking on the door. Evan Bouchard's over a point per game. That's no surprise. But, I mean, Zach Hyman, 8 points. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, 9 points. But it's been guys like Connor Brown that have been big for them. Who thought that Vasily Podkolzin would be scoring at more than half a point per game in the playoffs if you looked at him during the regular season? That's not somebody that you thought would be putting up these types of numbers in the playoffs. Podkolzin's been big. I mean, I would say he's been big for them. He had 24 points in 82 games. Now he's scoring on over a half point per game pace. I mean, talk about stepping your game up. It's just the one thing that I look back at over the years is that it's been the McDraisaitl show in Edmonton. And now the depth guys are coming out. And we haven't even seen the best of Victor Arvidsson or Adam Henrique yet. Henrique has 4 points, and half of those came in one game. He had a 2-goal game. So there's Matthias Janmark, who's actually been a real solid playoff performer in the past. He doesn't even have the points that he's had. And he was good with Dallas, too, in the playoffs. But, he doesn't have the points that he's normally had in years past. He had 8 points last year in their run to the finals in 25 games. He only has 3 right now. So I think there are guys that are on their bottom 6 that are probably going to start contributing more. For Dallas, if I had to look at one player and not just be vague like I was with Edmonton, I think it's got to be Mikael Granlund. I think he's got to really step up here. They brought him in to be a difference maker. Obviously, you bring in Mikko Rantanen to be your difference maker, and he's been the guy. But Mikael Granlund's got to really, really step his game up now and really make his mark if Dallas wants to win this series. So I think he's really got to get going, and I think there's a good chance he will.
Anthony, let's go with your X factors first before I throw in mine.
I thought Philk was going to steal my X factor for Dallas because he mentioned Granlund, who has 7 points in 13 playoff games, but Matt Duchene led the Dallas Stars in scoring. He had 82 points this year. He was their leading goal scorer. He's got no goals, and he's only got 5 points. He's got to be better. He's going to need to be better because the Oilers are going to focus on shutting down Mikko Rantanen, Jason Robertson. Duchene might get some favorable matchups, and he's got to make the Oilers pay. Again, he had a phenomenal year, 82 points for a guy who's getting older, kind of like Tavares, right? Same draft year, but he's still putting up high numbers. I mean, this guy a couple of years ago in Nashville had an 86-point year or something close to that. So he's still a very good player. He's UFA, which I imagine he's fit like a glove in Dallas. I would think he's going to stay, but maybe him laying an egg this round could determine for them not to bring him back. That could be the difference. So he's got to be better. He's got to score some goals. 5 points in 13 games isn't going to cut it. So for Dallas, it's certainly Duchene. For the Oilers, I'm going to go we talk about their goaltending a lot, but Stuart Skinner. Stuart Skinner, he had 2 shutouts there in the last 2 games, came in, got the Oilers over the hump, but that's still not good. So the Stars have a high octane offense. So if he's the guy that they choose to start in game 1, I mean, you're facing a lot of good players. And, if he plays like the Jeff Skinner, the Stuart Skinner that we all know.
There is Jeff Skinner over there too.
Yeah. Then it might be a short series. So I think Skinner is going to have to be really consistent here because the Dallas Stars have a lot of offensive forward depth.
One of my X factors is going to sound like a cop out, but it is Mikko Rantanen. He is playing with such a chip on his shoulder. If he continues to produce the way he is with the Finns, then obviously Mikael Granlund's going to have a great series then, if that's going to be the case. For the Edmonton Oilers, this is where the X factor comes in, the coaching side of it, Chris Knobloch, because since game 3 of the LA series, they're averaging 34.4 shots per game versus 26.4 saves per game. So if they could keep that shots to saves ratio down, that's like the widest disparity of the 4 playoff teams. Then Stuart Skinner doesn't have to do much. Then maybe he doesn't let in a weak goal. Then Edmonton might be going right back to the Stanley Cup Finals again, especially with the 2 offensive titans that they have right there. I think that's somebody check and see if that's Snoopy out there with the Red Baron.
Sorry.
No, well, it's Windows, Phil. Okay, it's all right. So let's get to the under the radar players. And guys, I'm starting this one off only because I don't want anybody stealing mine. Anthony, I'll go to you next. But the under the radar guys for me, for Edmonton, Connor Brown. He's their big penalty killer. Right now, he's 9th on shots on goal with them. He's actually been producing in these playoffs. He's going to be a big factor, as he was, especially in the Stanley Cup Finals last year. Actually, you know what? In the entire Stanley Cup playoffs last year. The other guy is Sam Steele for Dallas. And I have a feeling one of you guys was going to steal that one from me. 6 points right now in the playoffs. He's their 4th-line center. I believe he had the goal that tied the game Saturday night. He's going to be a big factor. Anthony, going to you. Who are your under-the-radar guys?
For the Dallas Stars, I'm going to go Mark Williams. If Mark Williams can play a heavy game and really bang bodies, the Oilers might be in some big trouble.
Hey, Mark Williams actually had a goal the other night that the guy down below took a leak and missed.
Yeah.
Oh, is it snowing? No. All joking aside, for the Stars, I'm gonna go Mason Marchment. This is a guy he's 6'5", 212, but he's a guy that scores 20+ goals in the regular season. They gave 47 points for Dallas this year, but in the playoffs, he's only got 4 points. So if Marchment can impose his will with his size and be a nuisance and score goals and be a disturbance, combined with all the other just talent Dallas has, that just could be too much for the Oilers if even a guy like him gets going, because he's going to need to. When I put him in the same class as, Dadonov, he's got I think he only has 4 points or so in this playoffs. So if those guys can really get going, along with the Duchesnes of the world and Granlund, I honestly think it's curtains for the Oilers. For the Oilers, I'm going to go with the worm, right? Corey Perry. He's not afraid to just.
What is he, Dennis Rodman now?
Yeah. He's going to be a guy that's going to try to cause a disturbance. He's physical. He plays on the line, sometimes borderline. He goes out there and he uses his body. And again, the Oilers, McDavid, Draisaitl, but they're going to get all the attention of Dallas's defense. So Corey Perry, Vander Kane, they need to provide some secondary scoring. And if Corey Perry, he knows how to do it this time of year. He's been in the Stanley Cup Finals now. How many years lately? You kill him into the finals with the Lightning, the Stars, the Oilers, and I might even be missing a team, right?
Canadians. You've missed the Canadians.
Yeah. So yeah, this is his time to shine, and I think he's gonna ramp up his game even further here.
Phil, who's your under the radar plays?
I really need, and I'm just going to say this right now, I really need an edit of Corey Perry's face on Dennis Rodman walking down the entrance ramp on Nitro with Hulk Hogan. So, and I could have a little too sweet, because now Corey Perry is officially the worm, like Dennis Rodman was, and he's NWO for life. When you're NWO, you are NWO for life. Oh, God, that's great. I love that. Oh, God. Mark's face on Kevin Nash. Oh, I love this. This is great. Under the radar. It's funny, Anthony used him as an X factor. I'm going to go Matt Duchene. He's been under the radar for this entire postseason. He's just been someone who, you know what? He struggled worse than Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner, and he's got no heat because he's on a sweetheart deal. And, you have had just a legacy performance from Mikko Rantanen. So he hasn't really the spotlight hasn't been on him. So for me, he's under the radar. He's gonna be a guy that I think is gonna have a better playoff series. I think he's going to show up. He's going to walk up to the poker table, and he's going to put his chips down like Mike McDermott. And I think he's going to have a little fun with the Teddy KGB across the table in the Edmonton Oilers. So I'm gonna go with Matt Duchene there for Dallas, and then for Edmonton, I think Victor Arvidsson. I think it's time for him to show up in this playoff series. He's been okay, but the points have not been there. He's not relied on to be a primary scoring threat or producer, but I do think that this is a series where he can come in and be an absolute pest and get under their skin. For me, Connor Brown would have been it, but I think it's too simple of an answer to use Connor Brown here. And I don't think he's been under the radar. I think Connor Brown has had the best postseason he's had. So I got to go Arvidsson here.
All right. So now we have our predictions. Anthony, let's start with you. What do you got?
I'm gonna go Dallas in 6. I just think they're so deep. They got the better goaltending. Overall, they got the better defensive core. If it weren't for McDavid and Draisaitl, I would say this with like complete conviction because that's how much I like Dallas. But again, I gotta give the respect to McDavid and Draisaitl. I mean, they're superstars, 2 of the best players in the league. They're that good where they can counteract some of this depth that Dallas has in their favor. So, but overall, though, I just think the Oilers' bid to get back to the finals falls a little bit short. And Dallas goes to the Stanley Cup final for, first time it would be since when, 98? No, sorry, never mind. They were, Montreal.
20, sorry.
Yes, 2021. Yep.
20.
So yeah, I think Dallas gets the job done.
Phil, who do you got in this series?
Oh, I have Dallas in 7. I will say this. This is a coin flip. I really think this is a coin flip. And you know what's got to scare Dallas more than anything? Is the quotes that are coming out from guys like McDavid and Draisaitl and how they're talking about how they're paying more attention to defense and how they don't mind, checking the opposition, how Draisaitl didn't mind checking Jack Eichel in the previous series. They're still scoring and they're focusing on checking. Can you imagine what happens when their offense really starts to get going and they're still playing a more focused defensive game? This is scary. I think that I picked Dallas because of the depth and the goaltending advantage. I just think ultimately Jake Ottinger is playing on another level right now, and I don't think either Pickard or Skinner can really match that. But I do think that having the two of the 3 best players in the world, or 4 best players in the world, including number 1, it's a scary proposition, especially when they really start putting their efforts towards something like that. The great ones always find something that they need to improve on. They acknowledge it, and then they address it, and then they do improve on it.
Mm.
And when you have Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl acknowledging that they need to play better defensively, that's a real scary thought for Dallas. I mean, I understand that they've got a hell of a team there. That's got to scare me if I'm every player on that team.
It's scary, by the way. As you just said it. I'm just going to echo what you're saying because McDavid at one point, he was back-checking harder than I've ever seen him forecheck. And again, Phil, you're right. That's what the greats do. They can sit there, identify it, and go, we got to do this. Bang. They go off and do it. There's, by the way, speaking about which, as I use that example, there's a great Bill Burr bit about Arnold Schwarzenegger. Look that up. But you're looking at this series, you almost still have this feeling like it's a Florida-Edmonton collision course, and you just keep thinking that. But I got to go Dallas in 7. I mean, you look at what Rantanen's doing right now. Some of the other big guns, like you said it before, Duchesne has not done anything. Jamie Benn kind of been quiet. Even Wyatt Johnson is sort of like a lion in the weeds a little bit. So I actually think watch out because we haven't seen the best out of Dallas. And I think if Dallas plays this right, that chip should be on their shoulder just as much because they looked like the better team through 4 games of that series last year, and they were 2-2. And then they end up losing game 5, and then game 6, Edmonton goes on. I don't know which team is going to be more motivated, Phil. I really don't. And motivation, I think, is going to be a huge factor. I think it might go the distance. and I think it's going to be Dallas in 7. All right, guys. So that was the end of our predictions. Make sure, by the way, that tomorrow night, if you're out, go check out Boss Croakers in Wantagh. Wednesday night is wing night, and there'll be 40-cent wings, $2 tacos, $4 Miller Lights, and $4 Yinglings. Of course, the Knicks will be on. Find some TVs where you got to have the Oilers and the Dallas Stars on as well tomorrow night. But there's going to be a lot of sports going on tomorrow. Guys, I said before, we had a jam-packed show. We are right now an hour and 30 in. We're finally getting to Bar Talk. So let's take that DraftKings break. Hockey fans light the lamp this winter with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. New customers can bet just $5 pregame money line on any NHL team to win their game and get $150 in free bets if they do. If that wasn't enough excitement, you can turn small bets into bigger payouts with same-game parlays. Combine multiple bets like which team will win, how many goals will be scored, and more for your shot at an even bigger payout. Download the DraftKings Sports app now. Use promo code THPN. Bet $5 on any NHL team to win their game and get $150 in free bets if they do. Only at the DraftKings Sportsbook with code THPN.
Shot. This is the easiest I've ever had to answer.
I'm gonna say beer. I can't even begin to describe.
I'm actually going to go crazy. I'm going to buy everybody around on this one. And welcome back, everybody, to Big Apple Hockey's Bar Talk, where we're gauging our confidence on NHL topics based on our choice of drink. So confident that you're buying around, so love a beer. Oh, God, I need a shot. Make sure you're playing down in the comments. And I am trying to make sure that there isn't that many hoops today, Evan. So let's hope that is not going to be the case. We are going to skip over the New York Rangers. Usually we have a topic on that one. Maybe we could get one in the next few minutes. But, Philk, I'll skip the Islander. We'll come back to the Islanders one because there is a little bit of a Maple Leafs tilt to this today, if you will. But we'll start with this one. With the Toronto Maple Leafs elimination, John Tavares' 7-year deal has expired. It'll actually do it on July 1st. You guys know what I mean by that one. But, Phil, John Tavares will return to the Toronto Maple Leafs.
I thought at some point there was a chance they would come back on a sweetheart deal. I just think with the way that he kind of like blended in, to use Brian Hayes' term, I think he's gone. I gotta say shot on this. And I don't think it's a layup. I really don't think it's a layup because I still think there is a slim chance he does, but it's a shot for me. They got to move on from him. They got to get younger. They got to get faster. And I honestly think they're going to take his money and then Mitch Marner and his money, and they're going to kind of allocate it towards Sam Bennett. And I think Brad Marchand too. I think they're going to go after Marchand. I think they're going to want to get guys that play that heavier game in the playoffs. So, yeah, I'm going to say shot.
Philk, I got to go shot on this one too. I understand he's going to they're going to say, oh, can he do a sweetheart deal and see if he could stay? He's not going to play for nothing. And he still produced pretty well last year, Philk.
38 goals.
Yeah. Like, no, you're not going to cut him down to say, let's say, what would be a sweetheart deal in your opinion?
You brought him back for like somewhere between 6 and 7 million. I think that would be a real good deal. I think it would still be a sweetheart because I think that with his production, he could probably get closer to 9 on the open market. I still think. I don't know if any team would want to give him more than like 2 years at like 18 million. or maybe somewhere between 16 and 18 million, maybe. But I just this is another thing. 38 goals for a 35-year-old UFA, probably not sustainable. He could probably give you another 30-goal year next year, maybe for 2. But I just think that a lot of teams are going to look at him and they're going to say, you know what, it's not the greatest skater, and the league is looking at, you got to get younger and faster. Teams all want to get younger and faster now because they see what the winning formulas have been. And now with that and him having a good year, but having a kind of a subpar series against Florida, I think that's going to be what's left. That's the taste that's going to be left in teams' mouths. So, I don't see him returning to Toronto. I do think Ottawa would be a great fit for him, though.
Mm-hmm. And Ottawa is already. Oh, they're pretty fast.
He could go from having Islanders fans hate him to having Maple Leaf fans hate him. This guy can be the most hated guy in the league. Oh man, John Tavares.
I don't know if he would have his jersey up in urinals this time around. So let's go with that one. So again, if I didn't say it, Scheifele, and I think, I just don't see it where he's back with the Maple Leafs next year. They're going to take that money and spend it elsewhere, and they might spread it around. Look for them. Good, Anthony, you're back. John Tavares is going to be a Leaf next year.
I'm going to say Beer, just because he really wants to return. I think he would take a little bit of a discount, so I think that opens the window a little bit. I still lean towards him leaving because the Leafs decide to move on, but I do think there's a slight chance he returns. So Beer.
All right, I threw down the comments on this one just because, or at least for the Bar Talk, get people involved on this one, guys. Anthony, now that you're back, I'm going to go back and do the Islanders one because there's another guy whose contract is expiring on June 30th. Brendan Shanahan with the Toronto Maple Leafs. The Islanders should target Brendan Shanahan for team president.
I'm gonna say Round only because the only other guy really in the mix for president is like Bergevin. I think we all agreed. I mean, he wouldn't be the worst thing to be the president, especially if a guy like Darsh was under him. But because, there's not really many other options, I would say, at least talk to Shanahan, right? He's had success with the Maple Leafs during the regular season. There's no doubt about that. Yes, obviously they failed to get over the hump in the playoffs, but that doesn't take away from the fact that he did make this Maple Leafs team one of the better teams in the league for his tenure there. So certainly that's an accomplishment that deserves for him to get a position elsewhere if he wants to. So, I'm going to say the Islanders should at least talk to him. Can't hurt. And again, it's not like there are many other good presidents floating around. Like the Canadians wouldn't grant them permission to talk to Gordon, who they really wanted. So, another guy who could potentially be a fit. Yeah, why not talk to him? So, not saying that he's definitely going to come aboard. He's going to get hired, but Round and the fact that they should certainly ask the Maple Leafs for permission to speak to him ahead of time.
Philk?
I'm going to go Beer. I think Evan's kind of right about this. Like, I think he should have moved on, and that to me is kind of a red flag. That team had so many chances to try to get the job done. Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner together for 9 years. Willie Nylander too. Together for 9 years. They didn't get the job done. They had John Tavares for 7 of those years. That whole core four just did not get the job done. They did so many different things. Part of that is on the GM though too. It's not just on Shanahan, but again, Shanahan hired the GM, and that's I'm between Shot and Beer. I'm gonna stick with Beer, but I mean, could things change in a different location with a different general manager under him? Yeah, the thing is that if there were more candidates, I would say that I'm not sure of how much confidence I have in him to hire the right guy. But there's not a lot of candidates that are available unless there's other candidates that are not being talked about that could end up coming to the forefront. But Matthew Darsh should be the guy that they should all bring in for the GM.
We're all in agreement on that one.
I think we're all in agreement on that. And I think most Islander fans, if they're smart enough, would want that as well. But I just think that when you have that long to understand that your core is not getting the job done, and you continue to go back to the well and back to the well, it's not a good look for me. So I'm gonna say Beard, just because maybe things could change in a different location, but I don't know. I think I'd rather take my chances on Bergevin than Shanahan at this point.
I'm gonna go Beer on this one too. I wanted to go shot, guys. I'm actually talking myself up to Beer on this. The reason why I got to question a lot of the contracts that they signed that he would have input in discussing. So it's not just all on Kyle Dubas, who I always I wasn't lukewarm on him being a great GM, but they basically had the Austin Matthews contract, which would have walked them to unrestricted free agency and right out the door. So they didn't really buy up any of those years of unrestricted free agency. You had the Mitch Marner contract where they could have moved him, and then they didn't move him, held on to him, and supposedly there was a deal in place for Mikko Rantanen, and then it was, all right, well, do you want to waive your no trade clause? And Marner goes, no, why would I? So then there's that. There's sort of like the handling of the players. The reason why and this sounds like everything that would indicate it should be a shot, but I think there was a philosophy that was there in Toronto that was not going to work. It doesn't mean that it wouldn't work with the Islanders. And this is a sharp contrast from our text conversation yesterday, Anthony. But I think there's a chance he could work out. I like him better than Bergevin. I'll tell you that. Just without thinking much on that one. Anthony, the President's Trophy curse, do you believe in it?
No.
Yeah, I know. Although it is a little bit peculiar. The only team to win the President's Trophy in the last 10 years and make it past the second round was the Rangers. But the Winnipeg Jets continue that narrative of the President's Trophy curse, losing out. Anthony, the Winnipeg Jets are the team facing the most questions this offseason.
I mean, for me, this is a fairly easy of a shot. I mean, Nikolai Ehlers is a free agent, so I mean, what happens to him? I mean, that's a question. He's a big piece, but I mean, I can name a bunch of teams that have more controversy or more questions heading into the offseason. I mean, Toronto's one of them. You have Martin Tavares, a free agent. What happens there? Do you make moves further than that to really change the makeup of your team? I mean, there's the questions with the Rangers. I mean, what do they do with Kreider, Zibanejad, Panarin? The Islanders, first, who's going to be your general manager? Who are they going to draft first overall? Do guys like Pajot or Lee move? The Devils, they had a good year, but they kind of failed to meet expectations. How many changes are they going to make? I can name a lot more teams I think have more questions than Winnipeg. To be totally honest with you. Sure, they have some questions. They're President's Trophy winner. They lost, but it's not like they're a mess or they have a ton of UFAs. So, I mean, you know what, Evan, get the hoop. This is an easy shot. Get the hoop.
There we go. There's the hoop on this one. And Phil, what do you think?
You're really asking me that question?
Yeah. So it's a shot.
Get the hoop. Yeah, get the hoop. Like, how is Winnipeg facing?
Yeah.
I'd have to ask you if you looked at their roster and looked at their free agents list outside of Nikolai Ehlers. Because there's no one else that really Brandon Tanev. That's a depth acquisition at the deadline for your bottom six. That's not. I mean, they have no one else that's coming off the books that's worthwhile. I mean, Rasmus Kupari, Morgan Barron, and Gabe Velarde are all RFAs, but two of those are probably going to be re-signed in Barron and Velarde, obviously. Kupari, maybe they move on from, but like, what are we doing here, Mark? Come on.
Well, by the way, I'm going to go with shot on this one too, guys, because I think this is one of those they're having good problems.
Sorry, by design.
No, but there's a lot of teams with a lot more murky problems. This one, really, the questions go out of how was Connor Hellebuck so bad in the playoffs? And the truth is, he was bad on the road more than he was bad at home. I understand the stats aren't going to bear that out, but he had two playoffs. Two shutouts in the way.
Get the Cersei Lannister gift.
Well, at least you can't get the full gift because obviously you can't play that on a PG-13.
I can't play that part of it. Sorry,
but nonetheless, Hellebuck definitely showed more in the second round series than the first round series. Thank you, Evan. Boston's another one.
Boston, Buffalo, LA, Rangers, Toronto, Detroit.
There's as far as Winnipeg goes, I don't think they have to change around their style. I don't think they have to make major changes.
They have to address second line center. It has to happen.
Correct, because that's one thing when we look back on this season. You tweeted about it. We talked about it several times, Philk. They never addressed second line center, and that was the perfect landing spot for Brock Nelson.
Oof. Somebody get me the gif of the soccer coach and then the washing machine, and it says oof size, and he's like, oof.
Oh my God. Is that really true?
I don't know how they did that, but jeez, man.
If that's true,
extend him.
2-year extension. Oh my goodness.
Awful. I don't know what they were thinking there.
Anthony, we might have a side comment on this one in a second. Let me just finish this thought with Winnipeg. Winnipeg, they need to shore up their defense.
Do this.
Yeah, we need to shore up their defense, and they need to shore up their defense. And then maybe that would have helped because their defense disappeared in the playoffs too. That was another one. And yeah, the injury to Morrissey didn't help much either. Winnipeg's not in danger. They're not in the Florida situation where it's like, how are we going to get through this? I think Winnipeg's actually in pretty good shape. There's a lot of other teams with a lot of other questions. Let's get back to Don Sweeney for a second. Really? They extended him? It's just always going to be the boys' club up there? Anthony,
just as questionable as questionable as the Rangers extending Drury. Didn't really make much sense.
All right, so there's more sense to be made of that one, though. At least I understand what they were trying to do with that. But like Sweeney, this guy's been under fire for like 3 years now. 3 years now, and you're going to extend this guy?
Yeah, I wouldn't want him leading.
Make it make sense for me, please.
He hasn't left the Bruins with a deep prospect pool. He hasn't.
The Zadorov and Elias Lindholm contracts.
Yeah,
Woof.
Yeah.
Woof.
We'll have a trouble with this one. I just also want to point out, Jeremy did say this about Winnipeg, just to go back to it. They need a backup that could play 30 games. Eric Comrie could do that. Eric Comrie is a perfectly fine backup for them. He tried to go off and be a.
They don't need a backup that can play 30 games. They just need Connor Hellebuck to figure out his road bugaboo.
Yeah, and that's in the playoffs.
And they need defensive depth behind Morrissey. That team falls apart without him. And I've been saying this for a long time. They do not have depth on defense behind him. For everybody that thinks that Connor Hellebuck faces the lowest load of shots or whatever, lowest high danger chances, It's not the case.
Nope.
Their defense is not good behind Morrissey. It's not. And this playoff run showed it.
But again, to go to Sweeney, look, and Anthony, I can make the case that Drury, his number one problem has been the Gorton players. He's worked around the Gorton core. That's been the thing. Vinny Trocheck's really the only guy you could point to and go, all right, that's his guy. And he's a far better player than Ryan Strome. So I'm not even going to argue that. But Sweeney's been dealing with his own players, and he handled that goaltending situation and the Swayman contract so badly. And then what was the name of the kid from Arizona that they signed and basically got rid of right away?
The guy
they drafted?
The one that was drafted
for bullying the disabled kid.
Yeah.
What
the hell is his name again?
But they signed the guy. They come out with a press conference and immediately dismiss him.
Mitch Miller, I think it was.
Yeah,
I think you're right.
Mitchell Miller.
Yeah.
And I mean, they thought they could just sweep it under the rug and have the PR for it, but nobody was having that. I mean, that's where I have a little bit of a defense for Drury over Sweeney. But Sweeney and this team has been going downhill for a while. And it sounds funny to say that when they're 2 years removed from having the most points in NHL history in a season. But they had their shot. They're done. I don't see them. I don't see a bright future on the horizon. It's a 2-year deal. Whatever.
And then they let Jim Montgomery go.
Yeah. You let Jim Montgomery go.
Let Jim Montgomery go. And then he goes and turns St. Louis around like that.
Yeah. By the way, we got 200 of you watching right now, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us. Because also, this was reported last week. We didn't get around to it. But the Philadelphia Flyers named former player Rick Tocchett head coach. Anthony, here's Tocchett's career record. But Rick Tocchett will coach 2 playoff series for the Philadelphia Flyers during his tenure.
Will coach or win?
Well, you're going to say coach. That means he at least made the playoffs twice. They're still in rebuild mode.
Okay. Yeah, I was about to say. Because
it's either he coaches 2 playoff years or they go on a run.
I mean, it's his tenure. I mean, who knows how long his tenure is going to be? Obviously, the guy's the coach for the next 6 years. Chances are, I would say, probably, I don't know, be around. Because you think by then the young team, they'll make the playoffs. So I don't know. This one's hard to answer.
What do you think he's the right coach in Philadelphia?
Okay, so that's a little more of a
that's a little different.
Well, I'm changing it up to make it a little bit more quantifiable.
Okay, I mean, I get what you're trying to do here. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
Is he the right coach? Yeah, I mean, I think Tocchett exemplifies the personality of the city of Philly and what they represent and how they play. So yeah, I think Tocchett's a good fit for the Flyers. I actually think he's a pretty good coach. So he's inheriting a team that, they have some good pieces. Mishkov looks to be a player. I mean, Tortorella, how he handles young guys, he handled him the way Torts is going to do. But I think he's going to be a very good player for them. I mean, Sanheim, I think, emerged as a top defenseman. Then they have guys like Bobby Brink who are okay. They made that weird trade where they got rid of Morgan Frost and Joel Farabee. But I mean, overall, I think the Flyers, Jet Lushanko's coming soon. I think he's going to be a good player. So I think the Flyers got a good future. I think Tocchett is a good coach. So I mean, I like to answer your original question because I think it's too hard to quantify. But as far as this, yeah, I mean, I'm hovering on beer around for this one. But I'll go around. I think Briere made a good choice. I think Rick Tocchett is a good coach for where the Flyers are right now in their development.
Phil, is Rick Tocchett the right coach at Philly?
No beer. he seems like a decent coach to me. I don't necessarily think he's bad for them. I think that when you look at his body of work, it's been decent. I mean, he got a bid out of Vancouver last year. I mean, they had 109 points last 2 seasons ago now, I guess, if you want to say that. I know that things kind of unraveled for them with the Miller Pettersson drama in the locker room. I mean, for me, that might be a little bit of a red flag, just because of the fact that, I mean, I think like a better coach would have been able to kind of sort this whole thing out and get it under control. But then again, this might be so extreme in the situation that, I mean, you might be ended up looking at both players being dealt. I mean, Pettersson could end up getting dealt this offseason for all we know. So I got to go Beer just because I think that it's not a terrible fit. I don't think it's the greatest fit either, but I do think he's walking into a situation where it's a team more on the uprise than it is on the downfall, which I think is good for him. So, in terms of him actually coaching in 2 different playoff series and making the playoffs twice or whatever, quantifying it, yeah, I think that's very possible. If we're talking about him being the right fit, that's probably a Beer for me. So I'm just going to answer Beer for both.
I'm just going to say Beer. I feel like this is the right hire. I feel like it's a good hire for them. Guys, I have trouble with this, though. You look at his career coaching numbers. He never made the playoffs with Tampa. He made 1 playoff season in Arizona where they played they won the qualifying round and then got trounced by Colorado. But then he had the 1 playoff year with Vancouver. And let's just say that Vancouver start, that's not his fault. And I'm not blaming him in any way for the way that tenure started, but I'm having trouble if you saw the show Mythic Quest, it's where they say, do you see it? Do you see it? I'm having trouble trying to see it. And it's almost like I'm having trouble, sort of like the same situation I have with Patrick Waugh, but this one, for some reason, Tocchett feels like he's a better coach. Even though you look at the numbers, I'm trying to quantify it. I'm trying to find a way to say this is the right situation, but he's a former Flyer. He's going to treat the organization well. I think he's going to be fine, but I just don't know if it's a great hire. That's where it's such an I don't know. And it's a bit of a cop-out, guys, but I want to say it's a good one. He's going to have to make sure he handles the situation better than he did the Pettersson-Miller thing. Because I think Rick Tocchett as a player, Phil, would have taken those 2 guys aside and probably punched them both in the face and gotten them to settle their differences right there. Well, let's look at the other big news, coaching news, which was the Anaheim Ducks hiring the 2nd winningest coach in NHL history, Joel Quenneville, as the head coach. Now, he's been there with Chicago. He's been there with St. Louis. Joel Quenneville will coach Anaheim to the Western Conference Finals, Phil.
This is really, really tough to answer. I don't know how I can answer this definitively one way or another, so just Beer.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, I would have to give this an incomplete if possible. We don't know what this roster is going to be like. I mean, honestly, when I look at this team can end up making a bunch of moves. And, I mean, you've got a bunch of young guys. I think Trevor Zegras might end up being gone this offseason. So you got to wonder what they get back from that. Mason McTavish is a restricted free agent. Does somebody try to offer sheet him? Brock McGinn's a free agent. Robbie Fabry's a free agent, but I don't think those are massive losses for them. Do they go out and make a big move to try to get better, this this offseason. I don't know. Hoop time has become incomplete time.
Well,
Oh,
as
man.
much as you might want to say incomplete on this, you're talking about a roster that's got a lot of talent. You're talking about a coach with a track record to get the most out of his talent. Bruce Boudreau was able to get them to a conference finals and game 7 at that within a win of the Stanley Cup. I also think LA, I don't know what's going on with them. San Jose is going to be on the rise. You have a guy that has been able to get the most out of youth as well everywhere that he's gone. And you might see some real results out of Quenneville right away. Now, you might want to say, well, you don't know what he's going to be. You're going to find that out soon enough. Okay. I think he does it. I think he gets him in the Eastern Conference Finals, and I'm going to say year 3. They might be the feel-good story. He got him quickly there with Chicago.
Yeah, I mean, he can't. And that's the thing. I see Jeremy saying not really a young player coach. Chicago would say otherwise. So he has some young players in Chicago that he did a lot of damage with, and he did damage with them early.
And when he was with Colorado, that was really more of a I want to say more of a veteran team when he was there. Is that right? Because he was
that was a little more of a veteran-laden team in Colorado in the right after the lockout. So
Colorado was a weird situation because I think did he take over for Tony Granato?
I think he did. I am not 110% sure on that. I think Granato might have been a little earlier than that.
But you had the assistants that you had the stars that he was coaching when he was the assistant coach there. Then he goes off to St. Louis, has lots of success, doesn't take them all the way, obviously, because at that time that was incredibly hard to do that because you're going up against the juggernauts of Dallas,
Detroit, and
Colorado. That was pre-salary cap. So then afterwards, he goes on to Colorado. Not really great results. Then goes on to
Chicago in his first season, takes them to the Western Conference Finals.
Western Conference Finals right away. Stanley Cup Finals the next year.
Yeah.
And then, but that was a core that he got the most out of quickly and for a long period of time.
I mean, yeah, they had a young core. It's when you have that type of talent, yes, you can do that. But the narrative that it doesn't work well with young guys isn't exactly necessarily 110% correct. I don't think it's close to 100% correct. I think there's a lot of mistruth and misinformation there.
And also, Phil, one kind of mistruth about a lot of things that we're pointing out right now. The thought you don't have to be a good coach to win a Stanley Cup or don't need a good coach. Absolutely not true. Because
I know people are going to point to, Dan Bilesman here and say, oh, well, Dan Bilesman won a Stanley Cup. Well that's what
Dan Bilesman, go ahead, finish that.
Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin combined for over 60 points in a postseason.
Yeah, but Dan Bilesma was just the coach at the right time to lead the team the rest of the way. Yes. And he did it for a short time. Is he a coach that could do it for a long period of time?
No.
That's a different story. Larry Robinson wasn't a head coach for a long time the second time around.
And he won a Stanley Cup in his very first season, taking over for Robbie Ftorek, who threw the bench on the ice.
Yes.
Really the end of his tenure in New Jersey.
But you over the last 10 years, look at the coaches that have won Stanley Cups. Paul Maurice, everybody has considered him a great coach. John Cooper, do I have to say any more? Yeah. Mike Sullivan. Craig Berube, I think, is a good coach. And he was showing that plenty of times with St. Louis. And I think he was really starting to show that with Toronto. I don't know So I can't explain what happened with Toronto, mentally speaking. But then again, all right. So again, in 2018, Barry Trotz. I heard a rumor he's a pretty good coach. Sullivan, Quenneville, Sutter. Before that, Quenneville, Sutter. Claude Julien. You could argue Dan Bylsma is the worst of the coaches to win a Stanley Cup after the lockout. But
yeah, I mean really. Bylsma is like, but I mean, when I look at Bylsma, I think he's like the Trent Dilfer of head coaches. Trent Dilfer is widely considered the worst quarterback ever to win a Super Bowl. I mean, and he was just at the right place at the right time behind a juggernaut defense, a good offensive line, and had a running back that could. Yeah, you know what? I'm getting PTSD. I don't want to talk about that anymore.
Well, I think the PTSD you're also thinking of is that Brendan Stokely touchdown that happened in that Super Bowl that they said was going to come out of nowhere.
Don't even. But that's just what it is. Like, yes, can a subpar head coach win a Stanley Cup? Yes. Can a subpar goaltender win a Stanley Cup? Yes. I mean, that's a little more of a trend than the coaching, but it just, when you have a guy that comes in and has that type of pedigree, yeah, I do think Quenneville will eventually, but it's just, I don't know when.
Yeah.
I mean, there's going to be a lot. I think this roster is going to change up quite a bit over the next few years. I think Zegras is going to be the first big move, though. I think he's gone this offseason.
I think hands down he's gone.
I don't see Quenneville wanting to mess around with somebody that wants to play quote-unquote Instagram hockey.
By the way, Mike Babcock, say what you will about the way he handles everything else. Mike Babcock was a really good coach.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, player relations sucked at it, but
yeah,
he definitely could coach.
All right, Phil, I don't know how much longer we're going to be on, but let's do some pick'ems.
Okay.
I do have a few of these. Let's start with just this round. Which goalie needs to have a better conference finals? Ottinger or Bob?
I'm going to say Ottinger. He's going to have to, continue to play at the level he played at in the previous round. I think Bobrovsky, I think he's going to have an easier ride here. I think Florida is going to have there's going to be a short series for Florida. If I end up being wrong there, it'll be the first or the last time I've been wrong, but I think Ottinger is going to have his hands full with this Edmonton team because this Edmonton team, they play a very fast game, and I think they know what it takes now to beat Florida. So if they can use that experience and use that to beat Dallas, Ottinger is going to be in for a fight.
I wish I knew this stat off the top of my head, but I heard that Ottinger actually let in more goals 5-on-5 in that series in Winnipeg over Hellebuck. If that's the case, then Ottinger needs to have a better round. So I think it's still going to be Bob. I think he's going to be there.
Wait. Who needs to be or
who's going to be the better one? Who's going to be the better one? That's still what the question is. Who's the better one? I think it's going to be Bob.
I think Bob will have better numbers this playoff round then.
Yeah. Maybe it might be a draw, but it's a pick 'em. I'm going Bob.
Yeah, I didn't know what the exact question was, but if it's going to be who's going to have the better series, then yeah, it's going to be Bobrovsky.
Yeah. No, but the question was who's going to be the better one in this series, and we still kind of went through a thorough answer. Which player needs to find a quote-unquote playoff game, Connor Hellebuck or Austin Matthews?
Yes.
Got to pick one.
I don't know how to answer this.
Got to pick one.
This is literally the most 50-50 split I could ever come across. So all I can do is just answer yes to this. I guess if I have to pick, it's Matthews because at least Hellebuck puts up decent numbers on the road. At home, he puts up good numbers. But Matthews, man, This dude's it's milk carton material.
Yeah, it's got to be Matthews. And I think it's because Matthews has to find a way to grind it out in the playoffs. He's got to find a way that when he doesn't have his best game, it's not all one-timers. It's not all sneaking in behind the D, because you're not going to you'll sneak in game 54. They know exactly where you are in the playoffs. So then he's going to have to start asserting his will. And you saw him in the championship game really perform in the Four Nations. But yes. 100%. But I mean, Hellebuck, though, one thing about him, guys, to go into this question on why it is more of a 50-50 split. That first round against St. Louis, I give all the credit to St. Louis for being a good team, but he was pulled like every game at St. Louis. Like, you can't have that. So
yeah, I mean, he's got. I will say this: Hellebuck definitely has to take care of whatever road jitters he has. I mean, last change cannot contribute that much to struggles. Like, it's up there in his head.
It is also the way that they play in front on him. Games again going with
they not move the forwards well enough.
Right. Game 6 they pushed Pavel Buchnevich into him. So can't have that happening either. Yeah, success or failure. John Tavares in Toronto.
I really can't say that this is a failure by any means. I mean, the only thing that looks bad is they gave him the captaincy and he ended up giving it up to Matthews. But, I mean, he had 493 points in 515 games in Toronto, including 222 goals. And he ended up scoring the goal that got them to the second round for the first time since 2004. I mean, that's like a 20-year drought that they had. I mean, if you look at it like by year, 84 points. Or no, I'm sorry, 80. All right, I had highlighted the wrong year. Okay, so he has a career year, his very first year there, 47 goals, 88 points, right off the bat. And then the next year, it's 60 points in 63 games. COVID, 50 in 56 games. 76 and 79, 80 and 80. And then it's the last 2 years really where the decline is start. Well, the second to last year was a decline. And then the last year, 38 goals and 74 points. I mean, I gotta say that it's a success just because, I mean, the guy put up solid points. He really did. And he was their second line center. So, I mean, it allowed Austin Matthews also to, have some of the weight off of his back with, coming up and scoring and becoming who many consider the best goal scorer in the league right now. You saw Mitch Marner and Austin Matthews blossom with him there. Same with William Nylander. I'd have to say it's a success. I mean, yes, they did. If failure, if your definition of success is cups and cups only, then yes, everything is almost going to be considered a failure. But I mean, he helped bring this team back to a real, true contender status. Like before that, they were like, "Oh yeah, they're going to make the playoffs, but they're probably a first round knockout easily. They're not going to have any chance against any team they face." He breaks the drought with them, and he gets them to Game 7 against the defending Stanley Cup champions. And yeah, he wasn't the best in that series, but when was the last time Toronto had been considered this much of a contender before that.
Yeah.
Pre-2004, 2005 lockout. So I'm going to go success here.
If there's anybody on that team, if I had to power rank them, that I would say that he was successful in the John Tavares era, because I don't pin it on Nylander as much, because they could say all the time the core four. It was Tavares, Nylander, and Matthews. But by the way, one guy's skating on a lot of blame here. I'll get to him in a second. I'm probably going to say Tavares, who had the series clinching goal that actually got them their first playoff win in 20 years. I'm going to say Tavares, it wasn't a failure. I think it was. If I had to choose between this, it's a success. Now, his numbers are similar to what he had when he was with the Islanders. So he was still playing at an MVP level with the Islanders. Twice he was doing that, specifically when he was a finalist. But you look at this and you go, I like it. It's just, I'm going to look at it and I'll say the failure resides with Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, William Nylander, and the guy that keeps skating on all these conversations. How is Morgan Riley not getting any blame whatsoever? I got to ask that question.
I don't understand that. I mean, they were always viewed as like a five and everything, and he just, I mean, only 41 points this season, which is really not all that good for a guy who used to put up like 70, 60 points. I mean, he had 58 last year in 72 games, but like, he's another one that just come playoff time, it's not there. He had 7 points, 4 goals, which is not bad. But he had 3 postseasons ago, he had 12 points in 11 games, including 4 goals. So where is the blame on him too?
Yeah, I got to ask those questions too. And it seems like Ranger fans have more vitriol towards Adam Fox than a lot of people have towards Morgan Riley, the Toronto Maple Leaf fans specifically. That it seems like don't you think you might need to upgrade from him? Because what noise did he make in the playoffs? He's one of those guys you got to look over and you're going to go, what does he have? Like 60 points? How? You don't even notice him on the ice. So is that wrong for me to say? Guys, throw it down in the comments below. See if that's a reason.
No, I think, Morgan Riley, for some reason, kind of escapes. I mean, people don't think about him because they think about the what's up, Peter? What's going on, bud? Yeah, I mean, it's just a lot for a lot of blame to go around, but he always gets pushed to the back because everybody talks about the core four.
Yeah.
And they shoulder the brunt of the blame. And then you don't see anything from guys like Morgan Riley. And when Morgan Riley is supposed to be, really kind of like the linchpin of their D. He's the number one guy in their defense corps. And they went and they built this D corps around him. They brought in Brandon Carlo. They brought in Chris Tanev. They brought in all these guys to help out. They moved out Rasmus Sandin. I mean, maybe you should have moved out Morgan Riley, built around a young Sandin, and gotten other pieces in there. Or, maybe you could have moved Morgan Riley and gotten Aaron Ekblad or something. I don't know. But I tell you right now, I'm with you. There needs to be a lot more blame on Morgan Riley than there has been, because he has simply not been good enough. And they gave him that deal in October 2021, and he's got a full no move until the end of the 27-28 season at $7.5 million. And while $7.5 million doesn't seem bad for a guy that's supposed to be your number one, when he doesn't show up in the playoffs, that's a problem.
That is a big problem. And Phil, let's stay with Toronto for one more. I'm going to ask about a free agent that's coming up in a second. But Matt Kachuk made a comment yesterday about how, we don't have to deal with the outside pressure, and the nickname that the fans in Toronto were given is the noise. And Steve Dangle had a great bit about that. But who's the blame for the pressure in Toronto? Is it the fans? Is it the press? Or is it the players?
All three. I mean,
You got to pick one.
You can't pick one.
Okay.
It's not. I mean, if this is a bar talk, it's an incomplete.
Okay. Then how can I word this a little bit better? Because here's my
I don't
problem.
think there's any way to word it better.
But here's my problem. Let me go into this. Mark Messier shows up in 1991. It was taboo for the New York Rangers to talk about the Cup. Adam Graves talked about this all the way through. And so I probably should have done this as a pick 'em, Phil, so my bad. Adam Graves talks about this. And Mess basically said, don't talk about it. We want it. We have to do this. And sure, Mess goes to the President's Trophy, and then they end up falling to the Penguins. Then 93, the biggest disaster of all time. And then probably the biggest pressure game in the history of the New York Rangers, Game 6 versus the New Jersey Devils, the guarantee. And they end up winning that.
He slayed the dragon. I understand where you're going.
He slayed the dragon. So again, how do the players cope with this pressure? Because look, I get it. When they fall behind 1-0, it's, oh no, here it is. But there's been plenty of times where Toronto's been the home team in Game 7, or they've been in Game 7, and they've actually tied the game versus the Boston Bruins. But then they end up succumbing to the demon. But don't blame the fans.
The problem is that the players are put in a terrible position because this has been going on for decades. And you can blame previous ownership for that. Harold Ballard's name was dragged through the mud for years. Leaf fans practically celebrated when he died. It's just, this has been going on for so long that it is carried over from one generation to the next generation to the next generation and so on. It's like the whole thing with Fish and Shoresy. Hey, Fish, how many goals you have last game? 0. The game before that. 0. The game before that. 0. The game before that. 0. You're not a goal scorer if you don't score goals, right? These guys are not playoff performers. And yes, ultimately it has to come down to the players because the players are the ones that are on the ice. But I mean, the fans want a Stanley Cup, and understandably so, because it's been, we're going on 60 years, and it's probably gonna hit 60 years, which is crazy to think about. But I mean, the press makes a big thing of it. They need a guy that's going to come in and pull a Messier and say, you know what? Bring it on. Challenge, accepted. And it's the press, they take the blame because they scapegoat certain players like Marner, like Matthews. They're not doing anything to Morgan Riley, who deserves a good chunk of blame himself. I mean, you don't get paid $7.5 million to be a number one defenseman and then not show up and somehow escape blame. Why is there no spotlight on him? And then you look at the fans who they're burning jerseys and doing things, and I get it, I understand it. I listen. I've dragged Mika Zibanejad through the mud. I still continue. I will still always criticize Igor Shesterkin for his contract and his contract demands. I don't think that. I don't think it's one party that's really to blame here. I think the blame should be laid out all across. And yeah, I know fans are going to have an issue with me saying that, but you know what? Yes, I understand the players. They come here, they sign the contract, they know what they're getting into. I get it. Just like Igor, you signed that contract. You're
nobody forced you to take the money.
Nobody forced you to try to reset the goaltending market. Now you're going to have to take the criticism when you don't perform. But I will say that the players are ultimately going to have to take the most of the brunt of it, and they're going to have to take the brunt of everything here. But again, it's an amalgamation of things. You are going to probably the biggest media market, considering that Montreal has their own French part of the market.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Toronto has a bigger following across Canada than Montreal does, if you ask me. I mean, could I be wrong? Sure. But I just feel like when you turn on TSN, what's going to be the bigger story on TSN? Montreal succeeding or Toronto losing?
I would say Toronto losing.
And that's really, that's where it comes down to.
I mean, of course, if the Canadians, because I think that's just the juicier thing now. So we're going to get to those. We got 2 more Pick Ems, and then we're going to get some about like maybe 10 minutes of Q&A on these guys. But let me also just say this, Phil. The fans don't throw the jerseys on the ice, and they don't burn the jerseys if you lose 2-1 in Game 7. You lose 6-1 and get your doors blown off. They lost 12-2 their final 2 home games. I thought it was egregious when the New York Rangers lost 4-0 in their final 2 home games with the shot at the Stanley Cup Finals and likely the Stanley Cup. But this, you can't have it. If the effort's not there, you will anger every single fan. It's just how easy that is. And just show the effort. That's why when you get the guys like the Sean Averys and the guys that grind it out, they're like, oh, this guy, he plays so hard. And then you get like if David Eckstein always looks like he's trying, Carlos Beltran always looked like he didn't care, but it was so easy for him to do all those things. That was the difference between some of those guys. They're so good, but you know what? Again, you take the money, the pressure comes with it. Juan Soto's finding that out right now in New York, even though he's not performing that badly. I mean, they're Met fans talking like,
I think he's going to be all right, but he's definitely
all right.
It's definitely subpar right now for him.
Right, but we're one.
Guy's got like a 385 on base percentage, which is not that far off of his norms.
All right, so we got 2 more. We're going to do this. And that's Nikolai Ehlers, next team, Avalanche, Red Wings, Wild, Hurricanes, Penguins.
Oh, you forgot to say Rangers, which you put in there.
Oh, I did forget to say Rangers, or that I did. All right, Rangers too.
I feel like he could fit in Carolina. See, he seems like a Carolina type player that wants to play with speed. I don't think he plays their physical game. If the Penguins went and got him, that would be stupid.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, they've done a lot of dumb things over the last 3 to 6 seasons where I'm just like, what are you guys doing? They've needed to rebuild for a very long time. Avalanche, they're going to need a second-line center after Nelson walks. I don't see him with the Rangers. It's either the Wild or the Hurricanes for me. I don't know where he goes, to be honest with you. But if I have to pick one of these 5 teams, it's either going to be the Wild or the Hurricanes because I can't see him with the other 3 teams.
I can see him now with the Rangers, and I can see him having injury-plagued seasons. And
I can see that more than anything. But $9 million would be way too much for him.
God,
he's a 60-point winger. I mean,
he's not a $9 million player. He's a good player, not a difference maker. He's a supplemental player. I can see him going to the Rangers, signing a deal, and then he becoming an albatross financially. So, but I'll go with the Minnesota Wild. They're going to have bigger cap space. I think they're going to be more aggressive, and I also think that's going to be one of those guys that that Bill Guerin might sign just to try to show that they got. One of the Rangers needed a left winger.
And I don't see Nikolai Ehlers being there.
Although Nikolai Ehlers also can play the right too, if I recall correctly.
He's more of a left winger than he is a right winger.
Yeah, so they really don't need another left winger. They're going to be in the market for another.
He technically has before, but it's you're not. I would keep him on the left side. He's better on the left.
All right, Phil, last one of these. So let's do some Q&A, and then unfortunately, I got to run and do a favor for a friend. Which Brock gets more term on January 1st? Which Brock gets more term in free agency? July 1st. Eesh. Brock Besser or Brock Nelson?
Come on, Mark. If this was Bar Talk, we'd just get the hoop. Brock Nelson is like 34 years old.
This isn't one of mine, by the way.
Oh, this is Anthony?
Yeah, it's definitely Anthony.
Oh, jeez. Anthony, layup central, buddy. Like, where, like, Lob City on this? It's Brock Besser for sure. Brock Nelson is, like, he's 34, I think. He'll be 34 in October. He'll be 34 on October 15th. So, the first week of the season, he's going to be 34. Brock Besser is, I think, 28. Yeah, he's 28 right now. So, yeah, this is going to be who wrote that?
That's Anthony again.
Anthony that wrote that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Besser for sure. Like, I don't even have to think about this one.
Besser coming off of a 40-goal season last year, but 25 this season, 18 the year before, 23, 16. I mean, he had 29. So basically, he had a 40-goal season, and his second season was his most successful. So you have about a 5-year gap in between successful seasons. Phil, I think I get what might be a concern that maybe Nelson, you're going to get a bidding war.
No one is giving Nelson a 7-year contract.
See, that's where I disagree.
God,
5.
34 in October.
Yeah, 5 is a bit of a tough one.
I'm just going to say this. Anyone who gives Brock Nelson a contract that runs him until he's 40 or 41 years old is stupid and needs to lose their job.
Yes. And even when you have money to burn, because after all, Phil, the cap's going up
that
right
would
here.
be terrible. To give a to-be 34-year-old. He's going to be 34 at the start of the season. No one's going to do that because you're going to have an unproductive player at that point. No one's going to do that. Sorry.
No, and I think they won't do that anyway because wouldn't that qualify in the 35 and over?
No, he's not a 35 and over deal.
But you can't just sign him to a forever contract at 34.
Yeah, there's no Ilya Kovalchuk contract happening here, man.
Yeah,
it's not.
It's that's where we'd have to talk to Steven about that. Make sure I get all the nuts and bolts on that one.
I doubt Don Sweeney's. You know what? If Don Sweeney is not a good general manager, and I really don't understand the extension, but if Sweeney is not Chiarelli, then he stays away from Brock Nelson because Brock Nelson is not going to be a difference maker at Boston. You already brought in Elias Lindholm for that, and he has not done anything there so far.
And Phil, I get it when you don't want to. Well, first, let me also finish this. If I said more likely to be a Minnesota Wild next year, which Brock is going?
I don't think Nelson moves the needle for Minnesota, though. I mean, maybe as a playoff rental, I would have said okay, but I mean, they have wing depth, and unless they plan on not being able to sign Kaprizov, I think Minnesota's got to look elsewhere. I mean, could they end up with Besser? Sure, but I think they need to look another. They need to look at center, and there's. Oh God! Oh, this is a funny one. I mean, I think the latter would probably be better. I don't think they'll have to trade up to draft McQueen though. Maybe 1 or 2 spots because I think McQueen's going to fall due to his injury concerns. But I mean, if teams are willing to overlook that, and maybe overlook the need to improve skating, which is, I think, why the Rangers might not end up drafting him. It's because it's another player that needs work with his skating. But Denoye, I don't think they have a chance at. I think they would have to trade up significantly to get Caleb Denoye. But you know what? If you're going to keep this pick and you're going to commit to the fact that you're going to be a better team next year and you're going to send that pick to Pittsburgh because you think you're going to be picking somewhere in like the 20s, okay, fine. Trade up for Denoye then. If you find a team that's willing to let you do that, then go get Denoye. If that's your guy, that would be, I mean, for me, I could see Brady Martin falling. And I don't think Merca is going to be there. I think some team's going to take a chance on Merca before them. I think maybe I just something about him reminds me of Moritz Seider. I can see him having that developmental curve because for a guy that's like 6'6", he can skate very, very well, very, very well.
All right, guys, that's the end of Big Apple Hockey's Pick 'em segment, and let's get some Q&A for. We're gonna go for about till 4:15, guys. So, or even 4:10, because not going to have that much. Anthony's also saying I've seen mocks having.
Yeah, I know. I addressed that.
You did? Okay.
Yeah. Merca would not be a bad pick there. He really wouldn't. I don't think he lands there. I think he's taken before that. Again, like something. So Moritz Seider, when he was taken, he was considered a massive reach. That got a lot of oohs and ahs on draft night 2019. A lot of people were looking at it and were like, "What are you doing?" And then he ends up winning SHL Defenseman of the Year before he goes and comes over to Detroit. And he had a crazy, crazy developmental curve. I think there are a lot of tools here. I think Merca's got a good shot. I think he's a very good skater. He's got a good set of hands. His lateral movement's very good. I do think that you can. Anthony's trying to highlight something here.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. I'm trying to set up the audio podcast too at the same time.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I could see Denoye going 4. I could see Higgins going 5, even though some people have questioned that in the National and think they'll go with Frondell. O'Brien's a riser. I could see him going. McQueen, maybe Boston takes a shot on him. Could see that. There's talent there. Porter Martone falling to 8. I can't see. I could see Merca going to Buffalo. That's where I could see him the most. Victor Eklund at 10, and then 12, Rinny Merca. I mean, I could, you know what? It's funny because I could see the Rangers taking Keyshawn Aitchison if he falls there. I mean, a lot of people think Aitchison is like Trouba, but better skater, better offensively. I don't want Brady.
What does his wife do for a living?
Oh, God.
Sorry, got to ask.
Please, no. Yeah, I could see this too. Vegas definitely wants to keep Eichel. You don't go and trade for a guy like that and then let him hit free agency or let him go. Let him go. Justin Carbonneau is a decent player, but I could definitely see him in Montreal there. And then they would have back-to-back picks with him and Jackson Smith. Jackson Smith would actually be a very good pick for them. Go back up. Is that you controlling that, Anthony, or is that Mark?
Anthony.
Go up a little bit, Anthony.
Control room, Anthony.
No Logan Hensler? Carter Bear, Radim Merca, Keyshawn Anderson all going before Logan Hensler? Oh, man. Logan Hensler going 25th to Philly. That would be a good pick for them. I thought Montreal would try to take Logan Hensler. I think Logan Hensler fits like what they would want to do. Like you bring Logan Hensler in with a D-core that already has Control Alt L Rock. That's great. Oh, yeah, Frondell at 3. I could see that. He would be a real good. This is why I'm telling you right now, Anth, I would not want the Islanders to take Higgins first overall because you're going to give like 3 different teams the player that they're foaming about. You don't think that Chicago wants Misa more than anything at 3?
They do,
They have Schaefer and Misa at 3.
Let me also just reassure everybody, no Jar Jar Binks references right now.
San Jose, if they took Schaefer at 2, oh my God. You pair him with Dickinson for the next 10 to 15 years, that's a big anchor to your D corps right there. I don't think Carter Bear is going to go as high as people are saying. I think he's going to go a little lower.
Yeah, I think so too. I like Victor Eklund a lot. That would be a good pick for the Rangers if they dropped to 12. But
I think Lyndon Lakovich is going to be someone who I think the Rangers would target if he's there. I think with that's the type of side. I know they don't need another winger, but they do at the NHL level. But they need wing depth at their lower depths. And if Gabe Perreault plays right wing and you have Lyndon Lakovich on your left, I mean, that could be a pretty good combination. And especially with Brendan Hoffman, his future maybe being up in the air for all we know.
Yeah. Now, Mark, I know you've been a proponent of the Islanders trading down. So you look at this and you think they should trade down and collect extra assets is what you think.
Yeah.
I'm with you on that. If they really want Higgins that badly, then make the number one overall pick up for play.
I'm wondering how bad the Sharks or the Blackhawks could want Schaefer, how much exactly they would give up to the Islanders to move up, a couple of spots.
Where did you hear this, Jeremy? Because I have not heard anything about that anywhere.
That would be an interesting move.
Now, again, Anthony, I look at this draft, and Higgins right now at 5. If Hagen starts falling, then you could see something where the Islanders could put a package together, and a modest package, not even a big package, just to move back into the first round, and they could get both these young guys. I really think that if you want Higgins, you want the story, you're not going to pass on him.
I agree. You can't take Higgins first. If you want Higgins, you have to trade back, at least get other assets for doing so.
Yeah, and you could do the Eli Manning. You could just go ahead, draft Misa, turn around to Chicago, go, you want Misa? Give us a number, give us a price. You got first round. You got draft picks galore with a lot of these teams. Look at what the Penguins are doing.
Because I think it was Prom and a Wheel the other day. They said Higgins actually could end up being the most talented player in the draft, but there's concerns about his size. So if they traded down, let's say to 3, and they picked up some other assets along the way, I wouldn't be upset at all. I'd be happy.
No.
You can't draft first overall. You can't take him first overall. You gotta trade down and get him.
No, that absolutely has to be the case if they want Higgins that badly. And I think there's a prime opportunity for them. And I also think the Islanders should be trying to stockpile more picks too. We talked about what Tampa does before and how they were okay with trading down and getting picks. Then, you know what? This is what the Islanders should do then at that point. You know what? You can get Schaefer at 1, call it a day, keep it simple. And, you're probably your number 1 defenseman for the next 10 to 15 years. But, I mean, if they want Higgins, they want the center. The only thing is, who in their system comes even remotely close to anything Schaefer? Like anything Schaefer could be. I don't think they have anybody. And who's their best young defensive prospect right now? Are we considering Sam Bolduc still a defensive prospect?
No, it's probably either Jesse Nurmi, who's played for the London Knights, or Isaiah George. Probably one of those two would probably be the best.
Does George project as a top 4 defenseman even? I'm not sure of that. He's looked good.
Yeah. Maybe 4, but yeah.
I think the closer we get to the draft, we're going to get that answer, guys. And I would not be surprised if the Islanders tried trading up back into the first round before the draft if they're not going to move down, and you're right about that, Phil.
But here's the only thing. You're talking about trading back into the first round. That would imply that it's probably going to be towards the end of the round, right?
Could be.
So what are they getting there? For me, if you're looking to stockpile picks and you're looking to take the hometown guy, trade down to 3. Talk to Chicago. Talk to Davidson and say, hey, you know what? We want Higgins, but we don't want to take him at 1. What are you willing to give up to move up? And even at 3, you could take Higgins at 3 and say, oh, you know what? Maybe it's a little bit of a reach, but you recouped assets. You got the guy, you got the Long Island kid, you got the PR moment, and you got a guy that's, he could end up being your number 1 center one day.
See, this is where Phil, I think this is where you could take that Colorado pick next year, package it, move it up, maybe the second round pick this year, and try to entice a team to get back in. Now, I'm just going with picks. I'm not even going with players.
But where are we getting back in, though? That's my question.
I think they have to try to play San Jose and Chicago against each other.
Yes.
To get the most value.
I would agree with you there.
100% on
They would have to, bluff if you have to, but they would have to, because both those teams would kill to have Schaefer. Let's face it, they would both those teams would love to have Schaefer. So if they could get one of those teams to really pony up something, then absolutely makes sense.
I mean, here's the question I have. How far ahead would Chicago, thank you, Maddie, how far ahead would Chicago view Schaefer ahead of Levshunov? If Levshunov is like is he a 2 for them going forward? Is he a legit 1? I mean, I don't know if I see the offense there for him to be a legit 1. I see him as a very, very solid 2. Like, for me, I could see him being like their answer to Jacob Slavin. Something like that.
Yeah.
I think they would love to have Schaefer, but I also think that they would love to have Michael Misa.
Yeah, they would
really see them like. Could you imagine having that 1-2 of Bedard and Misa down the middle for the next 12 to 13 years?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also keep in mind, there's the questions about Misa too. And not the Jar Jar Binks impression, but the fact that he's really kind of come along, but he's had the one big year, but he didn't make the U18 team.
You know what? I'm not going to put a ton of stock into that because Canada's the makeup of that Canadian team. They left off a bunch of players that should have been on there. So I'm not gonna sit there and take away from Misa. You know what? Honestly, I would worry more about his production being tied to Zane Parekh than I would worry about him not being on that Canadian World Junior team.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's fair enough.
He's right.
That would be the bigger concern for me because Zane Parekh, not the 2024, 23-24, Parekh led them in scoring with 99 points as a defenseman. And he was a very, very high draft pick in that draft. Now you have, I think Calgary took him, if I'm correct. And then you have in this year, he scores 100 points, and Misa breaks out of nowhere. Misa was a point per game, just over a point per game player. Good player. Solid. Was looking like he was going to be a first-round pick either way, but not this high. And then Misa ends up going and having one of the best junior seasons. Who's Norm?
George Wendt from Cheers.
George Wendt from Cheers passed away today?
Just now, yeah.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's sad. She was a lovable character.
Yeah.
As I remembered, he made an appearance in Oh Baby when they was the Stanley Cup Finals in Vancouver, and Al Chartwick was able to say the Cheers were gone in Vancouver. But yeah, I would. I just think that
you're looking at a guy that had a phenomenal monster season, and I understand like the uptick in numbers and the drastic uptick, but I just think that there's still a very good player there. I think he turns into a very, very good two-way center, and he's probably a great, great second-line center for any team that already has a legitimate number one, and Chicago's got Bedard. So I think he slots in perfectly. And Anthony's right. If you could play the next three teams against each other and say, you know what, hey, you guys want to move up to number one overall, the pick's in play, I think this is the first year since 2003 that there is a legitimate chance that the number one overall pick is dealt.
Yes.
Yeah.
Legitimate.
But you talking with the pick itself, not that the player gets drafted and then traded. You're talking about the
No, I'm talking about the pick itself. I think the Islanders, if anything, they would deal the pick before the draft starts, and that's where maybe it happens the day of the draft, right before the draft starts, kind of like how they pulled that deal right before the start of the 2001 draft to get the two deals to get Yashin and Pekka. But I think if anything, we're looking at this pick being dealt, because I do agree with you. I think the team wants Hagens. I think if there's a legitimate offer, I think that pick is traded.
Especially if he blows them away in their interviews with him. If they blow him, I think that they're gonna be like, we have to figure a way to get this kid on the team, but also have it make sense for our franchise.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you.
Like, is Matthew Scheifele going to play in the NHL this season? Do you think he's ready? Because the last time a first overall pick didn't play in the NHL was Eric Johnson in 2006.
In 2006.
That's a long time.
No, Owen Power.
But he played in the NHL that same year. He just started off in college.
Yeah, he started off in college. Eric Johnson didn't play that year at all.
He was the last number one pick not to play in the NHL at all.
Yeah, I think with the injury, I think there is a chance that he doesn't play in the NHL. Could he? Sure, but I also look at it that there's no consensus one in this draft. Like, there's been arguments for Hagens earlier on in the year.
Mm-hmm.
Now there's an argument for Misa. There's an argument for Schaefer. Schaefer seems to be the one that's being mocked there the most, but I don't feel like there's a real secure like clamp down for Schaefer.
Yep.
Yeah, kind of not feeling that either.
Skating ability draw.
This is where the combine comes in. This is where team needs come in. This is where interviews come in.
Recoup some assets, like not a ton, but get assets.
Yeah.
And Hagens is you just don't take him first right now. If you can get something for it, then get something.
Well, exactly, and then because the most valuable thing is the pick. That's what matters.
Yeah.
And if you got the guy that, because I'll use the Eli Manning analogy again. The Giants wanted Eli Manning. As soon as he said he didn't want to go to the Chargers actually coveted Phillip Rivers. The Chargers were able to parlay that, get the quarterback they wanted, plus two more picks that became a linebacker and a kicker.
Sean Merriman.
And there you go. That's how easy that is. That's how the Islanders could do that. All you got to do is identify a team that wants to move up, and you could still get your guy.
Well, I think Chicago right now would lose out on Schaefer and Misa. So if I would imagine they would probably certainly want to move up to number one. I mean, not wrong.
I don't think you could definitively say this. You don't think Chicago would want the chance to get one of Schaefer or Misa? I highly disagree with that. I'm sorry.
All right, guys. I gotta run. I gotta do the work thing. So, Do we want to end it here, guys? We got another topic.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah, I got.
Yeah, no, we can end it here. That's fine. We've been on for 3 hours. So.
Yeah, I know. We really stuffed a good show into this, guys. So everybody, by the way, we have 200 of you with us. Thanks for watching us all the way through, whether it's on X, where most of you are, or on YouTube. And also stick with us through the draft talk. So we're going to be having a lot more of that coming up.
Yes, again. You might see us again this week too if the Islanders make a decision on their president and GM. So that's because that's got to be looming. So that's I would imagine this week if possible.
I hope it's sooner than later.
They better get on that sooner than later, because if they don't, I mean, you remember, you got to have everybody together for your draft boards. And I would imagine a new general manager would want to come in and bring in his own staff and have his staff be, doing the research and the scouting and the work and everything like that. But I would imagine it's got to be sooner than later.
Yep.
Yeah. And
appreciate that.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that.
That was Jeremy just saying good show.
Okay, thanks very much, guys. Yeah. Didn't know what to make of that.
Yeah, I don't know what that's about either.
I think it might have been because I accidentally scheduled the show for yesterday.
Oh yeah. Well,
yeah. All right, my bad on that one, Dave. My bad on that, but you guys are reasons why we do this and why we keep coming back, and just got to get more. But guys, everybody, thanks very much for joining us today on Big Apple Hockey. There was a ton that we went through. 3-hour show. We haven't done this in a while, but going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. Not just the conference finals, but also the Islanders GM search. Hopefully that's done. Take it easy, everyone. We will see you soon.